Welcome to the July 13th Complete Streets Commission meeting. This is a teleconference meeting with Complete Streets Commission members, city staff, and members of the public participating remotely to ensure proper social distancing in this federal, state, and local emergency. I would like to introduce Complete Street Commission members and staff present. I'm Chair Sally Cole. Commissioners present include Brian Altman, Katie Baruzzi, Vice Chair Jackie Sebrian, J.K. Jensen, and Christopher Coleman. Commissioners absent include Lisbeth King. Staff present include Kevin Chen and Patrick Palmer. Patrick, would you please provide instructions to the Complete Streets Commission and members of the public on how the meeting will proceed?
Yes, and thank you, Chair Cole and members of the Complete Streets Commission. Welcome everyone to the July 13th Complete Streets Commission meeting, and thank you for attending. At this time, we will ask that the members of the commission please remain on screen for the duration of the meeting. You will control your own webcams and microphones. Staff will engage webcams and microphones to make presentations and respond to the members of the commission. And for members of the public who are in attendance and wish to provide public comment, after the chair calls for public comment on the item you wish to speak on, please engage the raised hand feature. I will then have the ability to open your microphone and you can provide your public comment to the Complete Streets Commission. For members of the public who are calling in from a landline or cell phone, you can also press *9 to raise your virtual hand. That concludes the instructions, and I return the meeting to the chair.
Thank you, Patrick. Under reports and announcements, staff and commission members may communicate general information of interest regarding matters within the jurisdiction of the commission. No commission discussion or action can occur on any of the presented items. Kevin, do you have any reports and announcements?
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you. Yes, I do have a few items I wanted to share with the Commission. So since the last time we met, the City Council have taken several actions on transportation-related items. First and foremost, the City Council authorized the submittal of 2 NTC OBAC grants. So one is to go to solicit funding sources for the Middle Avenue undercrossing project. So this is the one that is currently very high on top of our priority list. The other one is to go to solicit resources for the Camino Real crossing project. So some of you might recall this is the one where the city is looking to add a 4th crossing on intersections along El Camino. So this would be at Encino, Robo, and Ravenswood.
Sorry, can you repeat the locations?
Yeah, Encino. Encino, Ravenswood, and Robo. Yeah.
Thank you.
And then also the City Council also approved the scope of work for the Quiet Zone study. So another highly anticipated project that we are taking on. So definitely, if you're interested in that one, stay tuned for the progress. And lastly, the City Council also adopted the 2022-2023 budget. And in it, there are some transportation elements that I do want to highlight. First and foremost, the budget approval essentially allocated some budgets for the planning and potentially design of the Willow Road bike infrastructure project. So this is along Willow Road, potentially from Durham all the way up to Bayfront, looking for opportunities to improve and potentially add existing bicycle facilities, infrastructures. So definitely a really good project for the city to take on in the near future. There's also budget allocated for a local safety plan. So for some of you that might know, this is something that the city is seeking to embark on. So definitely excited to now have the budget to potentially take this one on for this upcoming year. And for some of you that might be interested in parking enforcement, we'll be happy to know that there's also some budgets allocated to restore parking enforcement as well. So definitely a good start to the fiscal year. So with that, I will conclude my update. Thank you.
Is there anything more to add, Kevin, about the local safety plan? This might be something that's familiar with other commissioners, but I don't know much about that. Is there anything to add at this time, or should we just wait till we know more later?
Yeah, I would say kind of a high level standpoint, this is really meant to be a citywide document. And of course, the main purpose is to try to improve safety from a citywide standpoint. So
Okay.
yeah, well, obviously it's something that we'll be embarking on, but in terms of the details and scope of work, we'll still need to develop in the near future as well. So definitely stay tuned.
Very interesting. Thank you. Next, under public comment, the public may address the Complete Streets Commission on, oh, Katie, excuse me. Sorry, Katie, as a commissioner, Commissioner Bruzzi has a report.
Sorry, I think this is okay. I have a report and a comment. We may want to ask for public comment on the reports and announcements. I don't know. But the other thing I was going to say is that on the 4th of July, I was on the freeway overpass on Middle Road in the protected bike lane. And I was wearing flip-flops and I was incredibly worried about cutting my foot. So I wanted to report that as you're thinking about Willow Road, did I say Middle? I meant Willow. As you're thinking about Willow Road safety improvements, I just wanted to comment that the protected bike lane across Highway 101 is full of glass and debris. And that it represents a hazard right now for anybody walking or biking there. And I don't know what the plan is to clear that on a regular basis, but I wanted to make sure people on staff could communicate that with Caltrans.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to our attention. We'll definitely follow up with Caltrans.
I just want to second that as well. Thanks, Katie, for bringing this up. I have had three flat tires over the last month and a half riding my commute's on Willow up to Meta Campus. So I can definitely vouch for the frustration of there's glass on the overpass, and then there's also a bunch of debris that's a result of the construction that's happening on Willow, on the north side of Willow, right there near the bay. And it's just been a headache constantly because it's never clean. I don't think that's, necessarily the city's responsibility, but it's just been frustrating.
Is the segment that JK mentioned also controlled by Caltrans, or is that? Yeah, okay.
Yep, so Willow Road from effectively bay to bayfront is Caltrans right away. But of course, we have a relationship with them, so we'll definitely bring that up to make sure that it's that we make it to their attention to address that.
Thank you, Kevin. Patrick, at this point, should we ask for public comment on the reports and announcements?
Sure. Thank you, Chair Cole. It looks like we have one public comment so far. Sandy Maple, you are now the public speaker.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. My name is Sandy Nepal, and I've lived with my family of 4 on Blake Street near Middle Avenue for over 30 years. I first want to say that I'm in huge appreciation of the city for planning, organizing, and executing the changes on Middle Avenue to improve safety for our residents and visitors to our parks and businesses. But having said that, I want to comment on a few points discussed in the document that was recently made available regarding the Complete Streets Commission meeting. On page E2.6.
Excuse me, Mr. Nabel. Sorry to interrupt you, but I believe you are talking about the Middle Avenue item. So when the time comes, you will have an opportunity to speak about that. Typically, since we're on agenda item C, public comments are reframed to that topic.
Okay, I didn't realize that, so just let me know.
I apologize. Yes. So your time will come when it's item E2. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so let's move on to public comment. And just to be clear, at this time in the meeting, the public can address the Complete Streets Commission on any subject not listed on the agenda. So this is not the time for the comments around Middle Avenue, which is on the agenda. Each speaker may address the commission once under public comment for a limit of 3 minutes. Please clearly state your name and address or political jurisdiction in which you live. The commission cannot act on items not listed on the agenda, and therefore the commission cannot respond to non-agenda issues brought up under public comment other than to provide general information. Patrick?
Yes, we do have one more public comment from Bill Kirsch. You are now the public speaker.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, Bill, is this a comment on the Middle Avenue project? Or on
No, it's a question actually.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask Kevin if I wanted to find out what the status was of the undercrossing, the middle undercrossing under the ped bike undercrossing under the railroad tracks, Caltrains. Status of that project. That's all. Do you still hear me?
Yes, we can. If that's all, Kevin, do you have a response?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Kirsch. So I would say in terms of the sequencing, I would recommend that we complete the public comment period first, and then if the chair wants the staff to respond to any questions received through that period, we'll do that at the end.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Are there-
We
go ahead,
have
Patrick.
one more public comment from Terry Barton. You are now the public speaker.
Thank you. So I'm a resident of Mountain View and on the Mountain View Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I am, however, speaking as an individual and not a member of that body. I have worked in East Menlo Park area and currently work in the Gateway campus for the past 25 years. My comment regards the Meadow Willow Village development that was discussed last week. I noticed in the minutes there were suggestions on improving the pedestrian and bicycle circulation. I'd particularly like to comment on the proposed route for the tunnel under Willow and the current railroad tracks or Samtrans Dumbarton corridor. So the current proposal shows only a single diagonal crossing from the northwest to the southeast of the intersection of Willow and the railroad tracks, as it were. This primarily serves the private parcels owned by Meta at those corners and does not facilitate connections to other commuters or Menlo Park residents who may be accessing the Bay Trail or traveling additionally on Willow Road. So given that the tunnel is likely to be serviceable for 50 or 100 years once completed, I'd like to suggest that a more flexible design be looked at, such as an X configuration, so that you can access any corner of the intersection from any other corner. This would facilitate connections for bikes and pedestrians to the existing Bay Trail on the northeast corner of the intersection. The Bay Trail feeds a lot of commuters by bike onto the Dumbarton Bridge, and also south to East Palo Alto, and the large Google and Intuit campuses in Mountain View along the Bay Shore. So the Raychem, when it installed the current tunnel under Bayfront Expressway, it sat unused for many years, but it provided a very valuable resource that now serves up to thousands of people per day from the two Meta campuses in both sides of Menlo Park. So I would really like to emphasize that the connections for the tunnel be made flexible, and that a configuration that envisions connections to all four corners of that intersection of the road and the railroad right of way be strongly encouraged. Even if not immediately built, it will allow the future and potentially residents and workers far into the future to make use of that facility. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. That was helpful. I'm wondering, Kevin, can I make just a request to ask staff to have that comment looked into, Mr. Barton's comment?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And should we leave this as the same for the first public comment?
So Mr. Bill Kirsch asked about for status update on the middle crossing, undercrossing. So as I mentioned a little bit earlier, one of the things that the City Council approved recently was to go after a MTC OBAC grant that so one of the two grants that we got authorized to go to submit an application for, it certainly will be one step forward in obtaining additional funding for the final design and construction of the bridge. it is currently still underfunded at this moment in time. So generally speaking, we are just looking for a lot of opportunities to solicit funding, including Congresswoman Anna Shu's request to put this project in the fiscal year 2022-2023 federal budget as a member designated project. So there are a lot of funding sources that we're currently soliciting and trying to be successful in obtaining. So long story short, it is still a underfunded project at this moment in time. So we're doing everything we can to solicit those funding opportunities.
Thank you, Kevin. Patrick, are there any other public comments?
It does not look like it at this time.
All right, let's move on to regular business. Under regular business, the commission considers recommendations from city staff on policy matters or administrative actions that require commission approval. Today, the first item is to accept the Complete Streets Commission minutes for June 8th of 2002. Any clarification from the commission before I take public comment? Commissioner Brucey.
Is now the appropriate time to comment on some confusion about our recommendations on item E2, or should we do public comment first?
Wait, item E1, we're on item E1?
Or I know, sorry, within the minutes, there's item E2.
Yes. This is the appropriate time to comment on the minutes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I was a little confused. So I always appreciate that it's hard for staff to take a 2-hour discussion or however long that took us and encapsulate it in a few bullet points for posterity. That said, when I was looking at the feedback that staff had captured, I didn't think we were emphasizing as a commission traffic flow efficiency as much as was mentioned here. And in fact, what I was hearing was that traffic flow efficiency had been prioritized for these new roads in Willow Village, which is why the design was for 4-lane roads in many sections of Willow Village. And I was opining personally, although I don't know if this was everybody agreed with me, that felt like the wrong emphasis, that if you're trying to build a bike and ped friendly new community, that creating 4-lane roads with really wide lanes, but also just multiple lanes in each direction didn't feel like the right choice. And that designing the roadway width for the peak configuration for peak traffic projections as opposed to usual usage also didn't feel like the right choice. And I don't quite see that captured here. And I'm sure that staff heard that, but I think, for posterity and for clarity, that maybe there's a better way to mention this in the minutes.
Well, I think for accuracy, yes, I think we always want to review the minutes for accuracy that reflect the conversation. So thank you for looking at that so closely. Commissioner Brucey, would it address your point? If everyone's looking at E2 in the minutes from June 8th, it says the commission discussed and provided the following feedback. The first bullet point says re-examine Park Street and Main Street configurations. Those were the 4-lane roads that Commissioner Brucey is referring to. For traffic flow efficiency, slower vehicular speed and safety, we could just strike the term for traffic flow efficiency. I also don't remember the commission giving that feedback. I remember it coming up that was the reason they were designed with 4 lanes, but like Commissioner Brucey, I don't remember that.
Yeah, I think yes, that's right. I feel like traffic flow efficiency was the rationale given for putting in together 4-lane roads to begin with, but that to me, in my experience, comes at the expense. It results in higher vehicular speeds during non-peak hours, and it comes at the expense of comfort and convenience for cyclists and pedestrians. And so
can I offer
Yes,
a suggestion? Is when I look at the motion that's in there, like that seems closer to what Katie's saying in terms of like prioritizing bicycle and pedestrian safety as opposed to traffic flow.
Or just prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety. Oh, I see. And you would say as opposed to. I was saying we just.
Well, I wouldn't necessarily say as opposed to. I just,
Right.
When I look at how the the capture of what we discussed
Yes, yes.
doesn't look the same as what we ended up
Okay,
choosing as a motion, which makes me think the motion that the notes don't capture
Yeah.
the direction we went, because the motion is
clear.
prioritizes pedestrian and bikes.
so what if that feedback is phrased as re-examine Park Street and Main Street configurations, 4-lane roadway, to prioritize slower vehicular speed and pedestrian and bicycle safety?
I think that makes sense to me. Does that work for you?
Okay.
Adrian?
What about the second bullet point?
And
I'm
that
sorry.
one was, yeah, so that one was where we were talking about, do we really need to widen Willow Road at a point where pedestrians from the Bellhaven neighborhood are going to want to walk to the grocery store? Because to me, that makes it less inviting. And what we were, I think that was where we were having the discussion about, well, there's some kind of standard for Caltrans that requires that second turn lane. And because we haven't pursued relinquishment, we kind of have to abide by Caltrans standards. And there we went down that whole rabbit hole. But again, there the concern was, like, we know that the turn lanes are being added for traffic flow efficiency. The concern is that that's coming at the expense of not just pedestrian safety, but also like that more subtle thing of like, do you feel like walking across a really, 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 really wide road to get to the grocery store or the restaurant, or are you going to get in your car and drive?
Like the pedestrian experience.
The pedestrian experience. Thank you. That's what, or if you're an old lady living in the senior housing near the dog park, are you going to feel good about getting out your cart, your little shopping cart, and walking to the grocery store if you have to cross a 4-lane road with 13-foot wide lanes? Like, is that really what we need to be doing for that community? It was really thinking about that pedestrian experience. Okay.
So it sounds like the phrase pedestrian experience you feel is
Yeah.
accurately reflecting the comment. So should we change that one to re-examine project site access and turning lanes in Willow Road to prioritize pedestrian experience and pedestrian and bicycle safety?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Does that work for people? Maybe we could make a motion to make
Yes.
those. I would move. You want to move?
Go ahead.
Sorry, Commissioner.
We do the changes that
Chair,
Yes.
Kelly, if I may just jump in real quick. So I think if you look at the third bullet, I think the third bullet is trying to capture the sort of the pedestrian and bicycle crossing environment for Willow Road. So in terms of the minutes, they were kind of distinctly
I see.
pulled together, or I'm sorry, they were distinctly separated. So the second bullet point really addresses kind of the vehicular turning lane
I see.
on Willow Road relative to kind of the access comment and discussion that took place. And then the third bullet point addresses sort of that crossing. I understood that, one kind of piggyback off the other, but so that at least the intent of staff was to kind of separate those conversations separately. But if Commissioner Baruzzi felt like it's better to combine those bullet points, happy to accept that as well.
Commissioner Baruzzi, I don't think we have to combine the bullet points. Maybe both the first, second, and third bullet point all get the addition of the language to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety.
I think that was the headline that I was trying to convey. And I'm not sure everybody was on the same page. Not everybody was talking as much as I was, which is often the case. Sorry, folks. But so please push back if I'm wrong about this. But this is my memory that we felt like or I particularly felt that the things were being optimized for vehicular efficiency, for traffic flow efficiency at the explicit expense of the pedestrian and bike experience. And that since we get to design a whole new neighborhood from scratch, maybe let's not recreate the mistakes of the 70s.
Yes. So I think if I've got this, that Commissioner Sebrian, Vice Chair Sebrian had a very good point, which is if it reflects the language we agreed on the motion, which we agree represented the conversation, then why don't we just pull that language into those 3 bullet points? Is that okay with, I want to make a motion that in the first 3 bullet points here, we eliminate a reference to traffic flow efficiency and add the language to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety. In the case of the first bullet point, we would actually be saying to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety and slower vehicular speed.
I think that's accurate. I can second that. Does anybody have any comments on that?
That sounds good. In the end, I realize as I look through them, like a lot of the things are captured. I just want them to be in the other order because somehow I feel like if they're last in the list that they were like less important, but I know that's not what it says. It's just, yeah. So
Vice
yes,
Chair
I can get
Severin
behind
wants
it.
to emphasize that last on the list is not the last priority. Okay, I think that's a good point. Good. All right. So we've got a motion and a second. Kevin, do you want to take a roll call vote on the stated motion?
Do we need to do public comment on the minutes really quickly before we do that?
Oh, okay. Pardon me. Sorry, I'm still learning. Forgive me all. Patrick, sorry, any commission members have a comment on what was discussed? Any clarification from anyone else? No. Patrick, do we have any public comment on this item?
Thank you, Chair Cole. I'd just like to remind anyone who might have joined us recently, if you do have a public comment, just press the raise hand button in the Zoom feature, or you can press *9 on your phone. It looks like we have a question or a comment from Bill Kirsch. You're now the public speaker.
Thank you. Since I'm sitting here watching this, Katie, I appreciate your comments. And I really feel like if you guys are the Complete Streets Commission, the city has Vision Zero goals, has complete street goals, supposedly has climate action goals and reduction of vehicle miles traveled. Our newly designed streets should abide by those standards and should be aligned with those goals. So just want to say I appreciate you guys putting that language in there and just keep pounding on that, because that's the direction we need to move the city staff, and our city council. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Any other public comments, Patrick?
I believe that is it.
All right, let's start that process again about approving the minutes. So I made a motion to approve the minutes with the edit to the first 3 bullet points under the commission discussed and provide the following feedback, to include the language in all 3 bullets, to prioritize pedestrian and bicycle safety, to strike a reference to traffic flow efficiency, and in the first bullet to also include the language slower vehicular speed. Commissioner Severin Baruzzi seconded that. Kevin, can you take a roll call vote on roll call vote on the stated motion?
Great, thank you very much. So as the chair stated, we have a motion, a second on the table. For those commissioners that would like to vote affirmative to it, if you can please raise your hand and hold it up. I believe I'm seeing all the hands. Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to agenda item E2. This is a recommendation from the city staff of preferred conceptual designs for Middle Avenue. Hugh, how do you pronounce your last name? Louch? Want to get that right?
That is correct.
Thank you. Hugh Louch, the Assistant Public Works Director, will introduce the item.
Thank you, Chair Cole, and thank you, members of the commission. I'm just going to say a couple quick words and then pass it off to my colleague Esther to give you a presentation about the item and of course get comment from you all. And really, I think what I want to do is do a couple things. One of which is to acknowledge we've had a lot of feedback from the public since we released this item, but also throughout this whole process. And we really feel great about all the public input and feedback we're getting in this process. It's been just really excellent to have as many people participating. It's certainly what we want to see as we do these major projects. Middle Avenue is, as really, I understand it, really been selected as a project we're looking into in detail because of the kind of potentially critical role it plays in sort of building this alternate route for people walking and biking through town. And when you think about the Complete Street project in conjunction with the undercrossing, in conjunction with things on the other side of the tracks, and other projects that are going on both through work that the city is doing, but also through development work, it creates this really great opportunity to build this sort of alternate route. And so what we've tried to do in the work that we've done and that we're partnering also with others on, is really to think about all the kind of possible options that might sort of address that overall goal for this project. And really tonight, you're going to get a presentation about a number of different options. And I think it might at times seem overwhelming. And so we apologize for that, but we really didn't want to take too much off the table from a staff perspective. We wanted to sort of give you what we thought were feasible options and what we thought were sort of the trade-offs of those options, have a kind of robust conversation about that tonight, and then, you know, get a recommendation from you all about what we take forward to the city council. And one element of that might be really worth keeping in mind as we go through this is that not all of the things within this corridor have to happen at the same time. And so I think you all know that, of course, the Stanford Middle Plaza project does have a condition of approval that includes work on the bike facility from El Camino to University, and we'll talk more about that. And so that's on a little bit of a shorter time frame in terms of, you know, they're actually getting very close to occupancy, and so we need to give them direction to move forward. But the other segments obviously can potentially have a little bit longer time frame, and even some of the things within that first part of the corridor could come later. So we don't have to pack every decision into one meeting tonight. And so if there are things where you all say, like, we like this, we want to give you, we think this is the right direction, here's what we recommend, that's great. And if there are other items that potentially you want to say, hey, we want more information on, that we can think about doing you know, things on sort of multiple timeframes, if you will. So I just wanted to say a few words and look forward to the kind of robust conversation with you and of course with members of the public as well. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Esther Jung, and she will give you a rundown of the presentation.
Hugh, I just wanted to say that those comments are really welcome, and I appreciate the clarification around the multiple timeframes. I think it's a really good level set to get before we look at the recommendations. And I also agree, I was so thrilled at that May 11th meeting. We had, I think, almost 15 public comments. And I know the staff and the team have worked hard, and Kevin, to engage the public. And I think it's been really excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you, Hugh, for the great introduction. And thank you, Commission, for having me tonight. Let me go ahead and share the presentation. Okay. Can everybody see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Esther Jung, Associate Transportation Engineer with City of Menlo Park, and I'm here tonight to provide an update to Middle Avenue Complete Streets project. On the agenda tonight, I will be highlighting project goals and project background and present 3 conceptual alternatives in 3 areas and solicit feedback from Commission for preferred improvement options for Middle Avenue, and end the presentation with next steps. Middle Avenue Complete Streets project studies various roadway as well as bicycle and pedestrian improvements along the entire length of Middle Avenue between El Camino Real and Olive Street. The project has 3 main goals: enhance bicyclist and pedestrian visibility and improve safety of all users, provide safe and comfortable cycling and pedestrian infrastructure, and encourage sustainable mode of transportation, and increase accessibility of the corridor by supporting improvements related to Middle Plaza and ongoing study of the grade separated pedestrian and bicycle crossing. The city's right-of-way on Middle Avenue is about 65 feet, and the roadway is approximately 42 feet wide with 2 vehicle lanes and parallel parking on both sides. It is currently a Class 3 bicycle route, which means there is no separation for bicyclists, and the removal of parking on one or both sides of the street is required to establish Class 2 bicycle lanes. Back in March of this year, city staff held in-person and virtual public meetings and deployed online surveys. And from these outreach efforts, staff heard concerns about bicycling safety, especially for children, and support for providing buffered bicycle lanes. Many residents raised concerns about speeding vehicles and the lack of traffic calming to slow down those vehicles. Also, the majority of respondents from online surveys preferred removal of parking on either one or both sides of the street for bicycle lanes. On May 11, city staff presented to the Complete Streets Commission a summary of community feedback, and following the presentation, staff were requested to explore 2 bicycle lane options, one for with parking removed on one side and one with parking removed on both sides. For traffic calming measures, commissioners requested that staff explore multiple traffic calming measures to key locations along Middle Avenue. Additionally, staff were requested to conduct parking demand evaluation at Neelam Park and propose new frontage parking configuration, explore the possibility of eliminating westbound right turn lanes at University Drive and Olive Street, explore a temporary trial for Blake Street closure upon the request from the residents, and evaluate circulation from Safeway and gas station near El Camino Real. So based on the feedback from the public and commission, staff developed design options. And prior to the presentation of the design options, I would just like to reiterate that these are conceptual design plans at this stage, and different design treatments could be paired with multiple bikeway facility options. The first option for bicycle infrastructure is a Class 2 bike lanes with parking. Parking will be preserved on one side of the street, and bike lanes will be separated by small or no buffer without changing existing roadway space between the curbs. While parking lane provides a space for delivery vehicles, there is a higher risk for bicycle collisions with parked vehicles opening car doors. Also, the bicycle lanes here will be limited to 5 to 6 feet. The option 2 is a Class 2 buffered bike lanes with parking removed from both sides of the street. There is a greater distance between vehicles and bicyclists due to wide buffer, but without a turning lane on middle, it may lead to vehicles passing other vehicles using the bike lane. A removal of parking eliminates risk of dooring accidents, but removing on-street parking along Middle Avenue will impact residents on both Middle Avenue and cross streets. The third option is to provide Class 4 separated bike lane between El Camino Real and University Drive. This option is based on the potential to reconfigure existing Neelam Park frontage to parallel parking, an opportunity to place portion of the proposed bikeway in the space currently used by parking. This option would improve comfort and safety for bicyclists due to physical separation from traffic, and improves accessibility to and circulation around Neelam Park. Parking could be preserved on the south side of the Middle Avenue, but it can also be replaced with Class 2 bike lane. This would require a vertical separation between bikeway and travel lane, which would increase costs. Also, there will be a potential for complicated transition at University Drive, as well as increased conflicts in front of Safeway Shopping Center. The second area of study is intersection improvements. And for this topic, staff evaluated improvements at 3 major intersections: El Camino Real, University Drive, and Olive Street. For El Camino Real, there are essentially 2 issues: one for the design of intersection itself, and another to update Safeway and gas station access in response to many safety concerns raised by the community. First, staff were directed to evaluate a protected intersection at El Camino Real. While protected intersection can improve visibility and safety for bicyclists and pedestrians, the treatment would likely require a removal of one travel lane on each direction of El Camino Real, as well as having substantial impacts to businesses nearby. The alternative approach is dedicated intersection, which has some features of protected intersection, but does not require bicycle lane on El Camino Real. Gas station access still may be an issue due to proximity of the driveway to the corner of the intersection. In conjunction with intersection design, staff evaluated circulation around Safeway and gas station. Today, driveways around both developments operate without turn restrictions, and access through Middle Avenue is most often used by those who are heading northbound on El Camino Real. For gas station, staff recommend closing driveway on Middle closer to the intersection. Also, auto lane could be used as an access from Middle Avenue. For access to Safeway, staff recommends two options. First option is restricting left turn out of driveway on Middle Avenue, which may have other implications to traffic on Middle. And second is relocating the driveway on Middle Avenue further down and away from Alto Lane and El Camino Real. The proposed alternatives for both Safeway and gas station require mutual agreement with private parties. For University Drive and Olive Street, staff analyzed the intersection level of service as well as pedestrian and vehicle volumes. And based on our study, a removal of right turn pocket is not expected to generate significant operational deficiency at both intersections. The potential to remove right turn pocket provides an opportunity to consider traffic calming features such as bulb out or mini roundabout at University. The mini roundabout has benefits for improving safety and traffic flow with some trade-offs such as sharing of space by vehicles and bicycles. In addition to bicycle lanes and major intersection treatments, staff explored various traffic calming measures to address concerns raised about vehicle speeds, volumes, pedestrian and bike safety, and accessibility. After a full evaluation of the traffic calming measures, staff selected potential locations throughout Middle Avenue. For Blake Street, staff recommend an option to add raised crosswalk in addition to having 2 speed feedback signs within the segment between University Drive and El Camino Real. The flashing beacons are already being installed at Blake Street as part of Neelam Park project. At Arbor Road, where there are high pedestrian volumes due to Lyle Park, church, and preschool, staff proposed options to install either a raised crosswalk or flashing beacon on either one or both directions of Arbor. Staff also proposed to add 2 additional speed feedback signs between University and Olive. At San Mateo Drive, staff recommend adding a crosswalk on the eastern leg and turning the intersection into all-way stop. And this can be combined with a left turn bike pocket as well as bulb out on Middle Avenue. At Olive Street, roundabout was not considered at this time based on the current alignment of the intersection. With the removal of right turn lane pocket, staff recommends adding a bulb out on Middle Avenue to reduce speeds of turning vehicles and shorten crossing distance for pedestrians. Finally, staff evaluated trial phase of Blake Street closure upon request by residents with concerns of excessive cut-through traffic. Staff identified 2 options, one with local traffic accessible from both ends, and another with local traffic accessible from one end. And both options could potentially be designed to have pedestrian and bicyclist space in lieu of on-street parking. Staff will continue to coordinate with residents on Blake Street to finalize the design of the street closure plan. So tonight, staff would like to receive feedback from the Commission for preferred improvement options for Middle Avenue. For bicycle infrastructure options, staff presented option 1 for class 2 bicycle lane with removal of parking on one side. Option 2, class 2 buffer bicycle lane with removal of parking on both sides. And option 3, class 4 separated bikeway with either a parking lane or class 2 bike lane on south side, with reconfiguring to parallel parking at Neelam Park frontage. Staff provided advantages and disadvantages of 3 options and seek Commission's feedback on selection of the improvements and whether the treatments should vary across the corridor. Additionally, staff seeks feedback from the Commission on major intersection treatments. At El Camino Real, staff proposes dedicated intersection at this time, with the possibility of moving towards protected intersection design in the future. For Safeway, staff presented 2 alternatives, making right out only at driveway on Middle and relocating driveway further down on Middle. At gas station, staff proposes to close the driveway on Middle closer to the intersection. And staff recommends a removal of right turn pocket at both University Drive and Olive Street, and seeks direction on the potential implementation of a mini roundabout at University Drive. For traffic calming measures, staff brought forward a set of recommended traffic calming improvements at key locations raised by the community. And tonight, staff seek feedback from the commission on selection of these measures. So next steps, based on the feedback staff receives tonight, staff will incorporate and present recommendations to the City's Council for approval. If approved, staff will proceed with final design of improvements for Middle Avenue. It is anticipated that the Middle Plaza will be substantially completed by fall or winter of 2022. And as part of the project, as Hugh mentioned, Stanford University is responsible to design and implement bicycle facility between El Camino Real and University Drive. And that's the end of the presentation.
Sorry, I had to unmute and I'm working off of a new iPad. Thank you very much, Esther, for all the work that you did and for the presentation. Are there any clarifying questions from the commission before I take public comment? I'm also going to have to, sorry, change to a gallery view so I can see you all. Hold on one second. I think because you're sharing.
I'll stop sharing, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. There we go. There we go. Okay. Any commission members have clarifying questions? Yes, Commissioner Bruzy.
I have a few clarifying questions, and I'm actually wondering, I mean, we have 3 separate topics and I can ask them now. Maybe that's best.
It was a lot of information for sure.
So
yes, any clarifying questions or what?
So quickly on the bike lanes. When I heard you say that if we had on-street parking, the bike lanes would be 5 to 6 feet wide, was that including or not including a 2-foot buffer?
That is not including 2-foot buffer.
Okay, so that would be effectively 7 feet or 8 feet, including the buffer. Okay, that's helpful to know.
Yes.
I'm also curious about the on-street parking. If we leave one lane of on-street parking, my memory of Middle is that it's most heavily used at the apartments between University and the park that's not Neolon. And so I'm wondering, can that on-street parking be on, between say University and San Mateo, can it be on that side of the street, but then move to the other side of the street? Or do we need to have sort of more continuity? How were you thinking about that? Is that something that?
Certainly, we can have parking on the north side of the street between University and San Mateo, and also transition to south side from Olive to San Mateo or any other segments. But we would have to work out the transition when it gets to the final implementation of the design.
Okay, I know that's funky. I'll explain reasons why I think that might be a reasonable choice when we do give comments, but I just wanted to understand that was totally. Okay, so on the intersection improvements, and you went through these pretty fast, and I understand why. But what are the impacts to businesses if we had a protected intersection? I didn't see those enumerated in the staff report, and I'm curious. You don't need to go into a long, but briefly.
Maybe I can take that one if that's okay. So the protected intersection just basically requires a lot of space. And so when we say the impact to businesses, we really mean like there's a fair amount of right of way that we might have to take from nearby properties in order to build it out. So
okay, all right,
the impact.
That's helpful. And then what's the advantage that you were to? I think I can see the advantage from a complexity safety standpoint for restricting left turns out of Safeway onto Middle, what was the advantage that you imagined from moving the driveway? Is there like, what's the best practice there that would?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what I would say is if you look at the way we try to design streets, we want to keep driveways really as far from intersections as possible. And that's not how they historically were designed, but best practice kind of shows that that's what you try to do is move the driveways away from streets. And that way you don't have the intersection turning movements and the driveway turning movements overlapping as much. And so both the suggestion to close the one driveway at the gas station on Middle and the shifting the Safeway driveway down is really about trying to do a little bit better job separating those movements. So there are fewer things for any user, whether it's a person walking, biking, or driving, to negotiate at once.
Okay. Any other clarifying questions? I had one. Does anyone, other commissioner, have a clarifying question before we take public comment? Yes, Commissioner Jensen.
Yeah, so just still on the Safeway intersection design, this, like the proposed design with the right turn only still does not feel ergonomic. If you're trying to go north on El Camino, it's like you either have to, I can see people turning right onto Middle, flipping the U-turn there, and then coming back and still doing what they always did, which is turn left onto Middle there to get to the light so that you can turn left onto El Camino, or doing this, kind of roundabout, turn right out of Safeway on the north entrance or north exit, and then doing the U-turn on El Camino. Is there something that we can do to make this more ergonomic? Like, were there any other, it just seems like there should be a more sensible solution, but I'm not sure like what it would be.
Yeah, that's a great question, and definitely agree with you that we don't necessarily have any one solution that's like the ideal solution here, and that's I think why staff wanted to sort of bring some potential changes forward without necessarily saying we think this is the exact right thing, because I think you're right. Human, in this line of work, as much as we're sort of doing engineering, we're also dealing with human behavior, and human behavior can be unpredictable. And certainly people will try to find the sort of shortest path to get to where they want to go. So unfortunately, there isn't a real easy answer to there. That the driveway exists, it's there. There are going to be conflicts. There are treatments we can do at the driveway potentially, and there may be some other things that we can do that might help. But I would say that those are sort of more minor, sort of, trying to work to keep people aware, and those kinds of things. But the major moves of like moving the driveway and the turn restrictions are the most sort of conflict reducing strategies. And then otherwise we're sort of trying to heighten the awareness of people, of different users.
I like the reference to conflict reducing in that section of Middle for sure. All right, well, if there's no other clarifying questions from the commission, I will just ask one of my own. Esther, when you were at the slide about University and Olive, I thought that the slide showed a mini roundabout at Olive, but then in the summary, I think you said University. So I just want to make sure that that slide was about removing removing the right-hand pocket turn, whether we should do that or not at University and Olive, but that the mini roundabout piece was just being shown at Olive. Is that correct?
It's only shown on Middle University.
Only shown on University. Okay.
Yes.
That's where I got that wrong. Okay, thank you. And the other clarification I had was, would you mind just for a moment putting up, before we go to public comment, the San Mateo and Olive intersection slides again? Would you mind? It was so fast. No. Hey, you have a lot to move through. I get it. But San Mateo for one, I just want to make sure I was, yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah. Okay. Yeah, here we go. Okay, so can you just walk us through, I got the Olive, thank you. Can you walk us through San Mateo?
Sure. So our options, traffic calming measure options for San Mateo Drive is to add another crosswalk leg on the eastern side of the street and would turn that into always stop. And in addition to always stop, we can also create a left turn bike pocket as well as a bulb out or curb extensions on Middle Avenue.
Okay, so left turn. Okay. Oh, I see. Yes, excellent. Thank you. There's a lot going on in that intersection, so I
I
made
know.
sure. I got it. All right, perfect. Thanks very much. Well, if and thanks for sharing that with us. Okay,
Hey,
well,
Sally,
yes, Commissioner Seagram.
after I know I missed last call for questions, but I realized when I looked at my notes that a couple of my notes were actual questions. So
Yes, go right ahead.
okay. So one of my questions was in the slides between the protected thing, the protected and the whatever was the other alternative. Dedicated, right?
Dedicated.
So one of the questions I had was, well, actually it's not about either of those two, but in the like complete street treatment, right? There were three actual ways, right? There's the protected, there's the dedicated, and then there's the like default if you just give it the complete street. And one of the things I noticed in that picture is that Middle Avenue had an actual bike box at the front of the lane of travel. I see that that's gone in either of these two options, and that I think is because there's a protected bike lane, and so they don't need, that's for Sharrows, right?
Yeah, let me jump in on this. Yeah, that's correct, Commissioner Seabrian. So when you're a bicyclist using a protected intersection, you never make, I mean, you have the option to behave like an automobile and get into the traffic lane because you essentially always have that option. But what you would really do is you would make, if you're making a left, it's a two-stage turn. So you're always in that sort of protected space. And so we wouldn't typically provide a bike box in that situation.
Okay, that was one of my questions. And the other question has to do with, and I will circle back to this Safeway conversation later, but in the driveway moving thing, has there been any thought to moving the El Camino driveway so that it's not so close? Because, if for some reason there were limited turns out of that, that second driveway is super close to the intersection. And so while we're busy moving driveways away from intersections, that one would at least make that thing that you're going to try to ask people to do be a little bit more reasonable. But I think it's a yes and. Anyway, it was a question about could that other driveway also be moved in that giant conversation?
Yeah, we can look into that as well. I see the logic of what you're trying to say.
Okay.
And that's it for now.
Very good. All right. I think we can move to Patrick. Do we have any public comment?
I think Brian has.
Sorry,
Oh, I'm sorry. May I just offer something quickly? If we are, is anyone else having this issue in Zoom? If the screen is being shared with a prezo, can everyone see the gallery view? When that happens, I can only see one person. Is that something I'm doing wrong? I don't know. I will continue to work on Zoom here, but so I did not see Brian. I apologize, Commissioner Allman.
Yeah,
There's a
Madam Chair.
side-by-side gallery on the, I don't know, on the desktop app at least, there's like a side-by-side gallery view option.
I know, I'm sorry, it's not coming up on iPad. I'll continue to look, go ahead.
Oh, but you know what, Sally, you can also pull up the participants list and then it will show you who has their hands up.
Oh, thank you. Thanks very much, appreciate it. Okay, Commissioner Altman.
Okay, great, thanks. I think this is great. One just tactical question. The corner of Middle and El Camino, that right turn. Did you guys look into, or is there a possibility to look into like no right turn on red there? Because people just go through that, especially if there's bikes going to be crossing there. I'm just wondering if that might be something to look into.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Altman. That is definitely something that we could look into. And in fact, for some of the types of treatments that are identified, so like for a protected intersection, typically you do have a bike signal and that phases separately from the traffic signal. And so therefore you wouldn't have traffic moving through, they would be held. And then for the dedicated, you may or may not do that, but it is certainly something that I think when we get into the design of that intersection, and one thing maybe I just want to make clear about that is that's not a like, we'll do it and we'll go out there and move it forward. That's it. Any of these improvements are quite complicated, require a lot of coordination with Caltrans, you know, and a lot of work to move them forward. So those are definitely on the longer time frame horizon improvements. But I think, and that's when we would get into the details about how we would do that. And then maybe if I, sorry, can just take a moment. One other thing to say about it is that if we, even where we don't do the protected or the dedicated intersection, we can still look at potentially some turn restrictions or partial turn restrictions that get associated with other movements. So if we had, for example, a leading pedestrian interval, we could have a no right turn on red during at least part, if not all of that phase. So there are different things we can do, and those are definitely all in our minds as we start to, you know, that'll be a longer conversation, but it's certainly one that we want to have.
So, yeah, thanks. The roundabout treatment at University. What is it about the University middle intersection as opposed to the other intersection that makes a roundabout the chosen approach? So
yeah,
on all of it's a different treatment than a mini roundabout, right?
Correct. Yeah, and I can speak to that as well. So at this location, you've got two-way streets that intersect, right, and that have space sufficient to install a roundabout. When you're at Olive, it's one street that dead ends to another, and then you have middle court that's just a little bit offset. And so that arrangement of streets is really probably not conducive. It's really hard for the traffic that would be coming on Olive to get the right amount of what we call deflection, right? So where they get moved out to circle around the roundabout to bring the speeds down to have the kind of positive impact that you want to have from a roundabout. So that's generally the reason. And then you'd also have that court street that would, even though it doesn't have a lot of traffic, like when they were coming out of that street, there might be, it might be more likely to be missed. So we're not inclined to suggest it at that location.
Now, obviously a lot of bike traffic on that San Mateo going, over to Stanford for sure, right? So it brings me to a question about roundabouts and bicycle safety. Are roundabouts clearly a contributor to bicycle safety?
Yeah, if you look at, there's actually been quite a lot of research across the country about that, and there's good evidence that roundabouts have a measurable reduction, really in fatalities and serious injuries for all user groups. So that includes people driving, walking, and biking, because just generally in roundabouts, people are traveling more slowly. So now that is sometimes, in some cases, there are sometimes more minor collisions in roundabouts, especially as people are getting used to them. I mean, there's some research, and I think there's some debate about this, where you might actually see a small uptick in some roundabouts of those types of collisions. So we definitely understand, and it's important, I think, for you all to understand that this is not a simple, like, everyone will use a roundabout and know how to use it, and it'll go really well, especially at first. And so that's why it's not necessarily a recommended treatment for us as much as something that we think is worth considering, because you do see in some locations where you have more of those sort of like fender benders, if you will, or minor collisions, but that don't lead to people being injured or killed, which is something that we really focus first and foremost on.
Thank you.
Commissioner Allman, thank you. I appreciate your bringing up the right turn on El Camino, because in the minutes of the May 11th meeting, Hugh, you may remember this, but at the end it said, commission discussed and provided feedback to staff. And then it says, other considerations, explore no right turn on red at El Camino and Middle, and continue to seek opportunities to complete missing sidewalk gaps. So I assumed that those two issues, were on the staff's radar, and we would continue to look into those things. So thank you, Commissioner Allman, for bringing it up.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Baruzzi, your hand is up. Do you have another?
I'm sorry, I do have two more really quick questions.
Yeah.
And I think they're relevant to decisions we need to make tonight. So one was regarding that sidewalk gap. I would hate to accidentally make that infeasible through some recommendation or direction that we gave tonight vis-a-vis bike lanes. So I guess what I'm wondering is, what's the story about the trade-off with on-street parking and bike lanes and sidewalks between Middle and Olive in particular? Because that's where the gap is. And ancillary to that, I think that there is a bus that conveys children along Middle Avenue and stops in front of the new community church to drop kids off, or there used to be, and I'm wondering if staff have evaluated where bus stops are on Middle and integrated that into how we're thinking about that.
So I can speak to maybe first to the sidewalk question, which is that, and I think we do have some information in the staff report. It's buried deep in there. That's short, but we did look at the potential to add sidewalks. I think, as Esther mentioned, the city right of way is sufficient to add sidewalks without any other changes to the existing street, the width of the street. So there wouldn't necessarily need to be a trade-off. And maybe just the other quick things to know, right? There is complete sidewalk now on one side of the street, and then, very partial sidewalk and mostly not sidewalk on the south side of the street. So it would be quite a substantial cost, probably about 4 million is our rough estimate based on other projects that we're doing to start to fill those gaps. And so that's something that would need, further conversation and prioritization and before we thought about how to move that forward, but more discussion. And then we can look at, I'm not sure if we looked into, Esther, maybe you can speak if we actually looked at the bus routes. I do know that some of the school bus routes that Samtrans operated are no longer going to be in operation. And I'm not sure if this is one of them, but we can look in and see if we did. And if we will definitely check and make sure that we address that if it is, and especially if we consider a treatment that needs to make sure there's space for a bus to
I think it's a Menlo Park bus,
Oh,
like
okay.
not a Samtrans bus, but a school district bus.
Okay.
So
Well, we can
just so
definitely
when
look
you're
into that.
hunting it down, that I think is who uses it.
Great, thank you.
Thanks.
All right, well, if we don't have any more clarifying questions from the commission, let me ask Patrick if we have any public comment on these items.
Yes, thank you, Chair Cole. It looks like we have a few already. I'd just like to remind anyone who might have just joined that you can just press the raise hand button if you have a comment, or you can press *9 if you're calling in. But to start it off, it looks like we have John Donahoe. You are now the public speaker.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is John Donahoe. I am the Director of Planning and Entitlement for Stanford University. I had the pleasure of working with the city for many years on our Middle Plaza project. We were involved and participated in the El Camino Real Downtown Specific Plan, which, as everyone knows, was approved in 2012. And we in turn submitted our applications for the Middle Plaza project also in 2012. And that project was approved by the city in 2017. So we have been working diligently on the construction of our project. And as Hugh had mentioned earlier, Hugh and Esther, we are coming close to the point where we will be requesting occupancy from the city, probably for the office buildings first. And so we are very interested in making sure this moves along. I've had some conversations with staff that staff can grant, in essence, grant us occupancy if this particular issue has not been determined. I am also very proud of our particular project and how it fits into the overall scheme in this region of Menlo Park, that our project is designed with a community plaza at the intersection of Middle and El Camino Real. And not only does that plaza provide ultimately the access to the future grade separated crossing, but our project will be contributing up to $5 million toward the cost of that crossing as well. So we also see the importance of Middle Avenue and the bike lanes being implemented in a safe fashion there. As Hugh and Esther know, we have also kind of volunteered our civil engineering firm of Sandus and our traffic engineer, Fair and Piers, to help work on this on the Middle Avenue solution. And I know, hats off to Hugh and Esther and the rest of the Menlo Park Public Works staff. It is very difficult to come into a built environment and then try and implement more modern changes. So I am available for any questions. I don't have anything more to say, but just make you all aware that I am here and available for questions.
Thank you very much for your comments. Thank you.
The next public commenter is Randy Ferrando.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Randy Ferrando. I live on Middle Avenue, and my comments kind of piggyback on some of the comments that previously the commissioners mentioned, the gaps in sidewalks. It seems to me that this project is about public safety, and the fact is it appears that it's really bicycle centric, and the gaps in the missing sidewalks on Middle need to be filled in. Despite what people may think, I think the data even supports there are more pedestrians on Middle than there are bicyclists. Obviously bicyclists in the morning for school and in the afternoon are more heavily being used. But during the day with the parks and the church and the daycare centers, pedestrians use it, a lot. And the way this is designed with those gaps, you're forcing people to do two things. The folks on the south side will be, as they are now, walking in the bike lane. And the other issue is you're forcing folks to cross Middle Avenue to walk on the sides that do have sidewalks. And I don't think either one of those are advantageous. So I think whether it's a $4 million cost or not, the goal is safety, and that sidewalk needs to be there. And quite honestly, there's been a couple of new houses that have been built that didn't have sidewalks installed in front of them, and I'm not quite sure how that happened. But I really hope that sidewalks become a priority, and whether it's a $4 million number or not, that shouldn't be the driver here. The driver should be public safety and actually pedestrian safety. And lastly, the slides that show the mini roundabout at University and Middle, I don't know if I'm missing it, but I'm not seeing stop signs being shown. So am I to assume that the stop signs on University and Middle are going to go away at that intersection and the mini roundabout is taking the place of it? Or is that just omission and the four-way stop signs are going to be there? Thank you for your time and for letting me speak.
Thank you. Thank you, Randy.
Looks like our next public speaker is Sandy Nepal.
Great, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, yes, my name is Sandy Nepal, and I've lived here with my family of 4 on Blake Street for over 30 years. I appreciate the effort that the city is putting into trying to make this area safer for pedestrians, bicycles, and cars. But I want to comment on a few points that were discussed in the document that was recently made available and discussed today on the meeting so far. On page E26, the report states that residents want to close Blake Street to through traffic with the goal of eliminating cut-through traffic. While the wish is true, the goal, however, is not to eliminate cut-through traffic, although it will do that. The goal is to make the Blake Middle intersection, which thankfully will soon have a pedestrian activated crosswalk sign, safer for cars on these streets, for those entering, exiting the parking spaces at Nealon, and also to eliminate virtual U-turns on Middle via a short visit to and a 3-point turn on Blake. On the same page, the report considers eliminating parking on Blake as part of closing Blake to through traffic, but residents did not request this, and I don't understand the utility for it. although some consideration for non-emergency service vehicles entering and leaving Blake should be considered. On attachment B, staff made some observations about how many cars are parked in the area and said that there weren't very many of them, but during construction. And however, during most of those days, Blake Street was literally filled with parked cars. I live on Blake Street and noted many cars turning onto Blake from Middle only to execute the three-point turn to go back out on Middle. There's no doubt in my mind that eliminating parking along Middle will greatly increase parking on Blake, Maury, and Kenwood. I don't necessarily think increased parking is bad, but it should be minimized and monitored so as to not decrease the quality of life on these streets. It's important instead to direct traffic to and efficiently use the parking on the Nealon Park footprint. Finally, on page E 2.4, it addresses these changes to Safeway Plaza, including the no left turn coming out of Safeway Plaza. I think that, and I agree with Commissioner Jensen's logic on this, forcing traffic to exit the plaza and make to make a right turn only is a terrible idea. It will generate unsafe and illegal U-turns and incentivize the use of Maury Kenwood streets for direction reversals and will decrease the quality of life there. And if Blake Street is not ultimately closed at Middle, it will suffer the same. So there are other issues, but of course I'll leave them to others to raise. And again, I'm very pleased by the city's careful planning and I look forward to a good outcome for the city and its residents.
Thank you, Sandy. You got a lot in there with 7 seconds to go. So thank you for your thorough comments. Appreciate it.
The next public comment is from David Alfano.
I believe I'm unmuted. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. Thank you very much. My name is David Alfano. I'm a 34-year resident of Menlo Park. I live on Kenwood Drive. I really appreciate the outreach that the city has provided to the community. I've had several exchanges with Esther Jung, and I'm very grateful for that. I have sent comments to all the staff members who are present in this meeting, and I hope that those comments have been conveyed to the commission. I would like to quote a piece of that because I have a very substantial concern about the proposed elimination of the left turn out of Safeway. Of course, I'm concerned about making a U-turn as part of a traffic engineering recommendation, but I think from my point of view as a resident who, this is where I live, so I walk, I cycle, I drive all of these areas. I'm extremely familiar with all the traffic and issues there. I think that coming out of Safeway, they either have to conduct a U-turn immediately or maybe get up to Kenwood Drive and spin around there and have a little bit more turning radius, or perhaps force a cut through down Kenwood and Maury to come back out. If a Safeway customer wants to go northbound on El Camino Real, they really don't have a choice but to either execute a U-turn, which of course is a traffic congestion measure, or cut through. And I think that by eliminating that right turn, you're really forcing a cut through traffic onto Kenwood and Maury. And we've already seen a great deal of new traffic during the construction. Also, I think unless Blake Street gets a treatment like a removable bollard at Middle, that's going to be another cut through opportunity for people who want to go southbound in El Camino in a traffic situation. You make the right turn, you cut through Blake, you zip down College, perhaps at high speed, and you've got a free right turn. So I'm very, very concerned about the restriction of the left turn out of Safeway, and I think that should be a non-starter. With respect to the intersection, I know that's a difficult intersection at El Camino and Middle. I am assuming that the phasing will be addressed at that time because current phasing places pedestrians and cars turning northbound on El Camino into the traffic lane at the same time. So the pedestrians get the walk sign and the left turning cars get the green light at the same time. And I'm assuming that will be addressed. I have other comments that I hope will be conveyed from staff to the commission. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, David.
Our next public comment comes from Adina Levin.
Is there anything else besides the web?
Good evening, commissioners. Hang on, let me mute something else that's going on in the background.
No problem.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yeah, Adina Levin, Menlo Park resident, former Complete Streets Commissioner, and I live near Middle on Fremont and use the street, on a daily basis, more or less. And so I'm really glad to see these safety improvements being moved forward. I'm really happy with the amount of robust public outreach that has happened with in-person meetings and online meetings and surveys, and then what staff has done to really digest comments from the community members and from commissioners, and to come back with some proposed solutions. One thing that was really interesting in looking at the staff report was the experience of having the parking being closed by Nealon Park and using that as a in practice experiment to see that when that happened, like no disasters occurred. And there were some hypotheses that there was enough car parking, especially like around the back of the park and so on, that it wouldn't cause a problem. And we saw that it didn't. And so that really, I think, opens up a number of solutions. With regard to the bike lanes, I think buffers are good. I'm pretty nervous about the two-way proposal. If there is a two-way proposal, I would only be in favor of it if there's also a bike lane on the other side, because having a two-way bike lane and then having people having to cut over to the other side of the street is a recipe for confusion and lack of safety. And I'm also nervous about two-way and how it impacts pedestrians crossing the street. And so if we do look at that direction, maybe some kind of a test or pilot would be helpful. In terms of the Safeway and the turns, I am supportive of looking at ways of making that safer, moving driveways further away and exploring how to not have turns across traffic, which are really pretty difficult for drivers. Let's see, what else? Strongly support the sidewalk. That missing sidewalk is a real problem for many people who walk in the neighborhood. Love the turn pocket by San Mateo. Looking forward to listening to the rest of the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Adina.
It looks like our next public comment is from Susan Earhart.
Hi, thank you. I emailed the commission my concerns earlier, and so I don't want to go into all of that, but I'm mainly concerned with eliminating the left-hand turn out of the Safeway parking lot onto Middle Avenue. I've lived in Bellhaven for 6 years now, but before that I lived along Sand Hill Road, and my usual practice was to make a right out of the Safeway parking lot onto El Camino. And so I know what it's like pulling into traffic there, but the thought of having to be forced to cross over all 3 lanes of traffic in that direction in a very short space, and then having to make a U-turn to be able to go back home just absolutely fills me with dread. And this change would affect people in 3 of the 5 city council districts. So it affects a lot of residents. And I'm worried that if these residents feel that it's unsafe to travel to and from Safeway, then they may choose to spend their money elsewhere, which could take them outside of the city. So I hope there are alternatives to this, or possibly not going forward with the elimination of the left turn onto Middle out of the Safeway parking lot. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan.
The next public comment comes from Bill Kirsch.
Thank you, Patrick. Hi, I'm Bill Kirsch. Thank you, commissioners, for your hard work on this very important topic. Hats off to Hugh and Esther and the whole transportation department. In my 8 years on the commission, this is by far the best set of alternatives that I've seen that actually align with all of these professed goals of the city: complete streets, Vision Zero, et cetera. And I just encourage the commissioners to embrace the courage that the staff is showing and really put forward the best plan to protect and encourage pedestrian and bicycle access. Those, all 3 goals of this project are directed towards pedestrians and bicycles. So that should be, those 2 things should be the primary driver of this project. I feel like, the city has just paid lip service to all these stated goals, but here we can actually get moving on those goals. Complete streets, that's the name of your commission, Vision Zero, et cetera. So a few things that I think really stand out here is that we don't need the perpendicular parking fronting Nealon, the work replacing that old parking, prove that out. There were no problems. The other things I really like are the speed tables to slow down traffic. I think those are really important. I also like the 4-way stop at San Mateo. And I would love to see bike lanes in both directions. And I would like to see removal of parking on the entire corridor, because if you read through the report, you'll see that all of the houses, all the residential properties have adequate parking on their property. The final thing I'd like to say is let's put our best foot forward. This is the most important corridor project that you'll probably see in your career as a commissioner. And so this is so important. If we get the middle undercrossing, this can be a huge project to really incentivize pedestrians and cyclists and start to move us away from just promoting automobile use. So finally, what I ask you to do, besides putting something really strong forward tonight, also as a private citizen, go in front of the city council and tell them what you want to see and encourage your friends, neighbors to do the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Mr. Kirsch, our next public comment comes from Ashley Callahan.
Hello, thank you so much. I really appreciate all that the committee is doing to help think through all these very difficult questions. So just wanted to start with a lot of gratitude for all the hard work that's gone into this meeting and the reports and everything. I am a resident on Middle Avenue. I've lived in Menlo Park for a decade and a half. And I'd like to start with saying I have a preference for option 1 with the class 2 bike lanes with parking preserved. It seems like a balanced option because you increase the bike safety, but you minimize the consequences. And I would really love to see us make changes that increase the bike safety while still considering the needs of the residents. I live across from Nealon Park, and so I've witnessed all of the parking and non-parking issues. And I'd say it was a a bit more chaotic than is being portrayed. And I think that we may have had a decrease in people attending, like going to Nealon Park during the construction, because there was almost no way to get into it because you only could get in down by the driveway. It was all blocked off. So I'm not sure we got an accurate read on the parking needs there. I have a strong concern with removing all parking on Middle Avenue. As a resident of Middle Ave, I think the street parking needs to remain in 2 specific areas. Residents need places for visitors, workers, delivery vehicles to park, and it's unfair to remove parking with no close alternatives for residents. There are 2 areas that I recommend keeping the parking, and that would be on the south side between El Camino and University, because there are over 26 single-family houses and only 1 cross street, which is Blake Street. It's 2 very long blocks, and there would be little or no close by parking alternatives for these residents. You'd then have to cross over Middle Ave to find other parking. It's not practical for people. Yes, we have 3 parking spots in our driveway, but we have 5 people in our family and 2 teenagers, and we have friends and visitors that would still like to be able to come over. The second place that I would recommend keeping parking are on the north side of University past Lyle Park to New Community Church, because there are more multifamily units. There's a community center, a church, a park, and a preschool. Good ideas I see. I really strongly approve the Blake Street closure to increase pedestrian safety and bike safety. To clarify on our idea, I would not remove parking on Blake Street. That wouldn't help the problem. And I wouldn't add a bike lane. It's unnecessary. I like the feedback signs and the flashing crosswalks, and the continuous sidewalks would be wonderful. I think they're adding more parking to the back of Nealon with more additional parking spaces. That seems like a great idea. Stop sign at San Mateo is a great idea. I am concerned with the traffic circles. Sometimes it seems like they can create more problems than they solve. And the raised humps, I'm just wondering in the spirit of starting with small things and then working our way up, if we could do the first things and then leave like the traffic circle and the raised humps till a later date and see if we've done enough to increase safety. Thank you for listening, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
For your comments. It does not look like we have any more public comments at this time. I'd like to give it another minute. If you do have a comment, just raise your hand or press *9. All right, I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, then. Thank you. I'd like to, at this time, ask the commission for their feedback, commissioners on their feedback on the recommendations presented. Any feedback?
Question to the chair. Would you like us to tackle these 3 things separately? So section 1 was recommendations for bike facilities, and there was traffic calming at intersections. What makes the most sense? What would be helpful to staff?
I'd be interested to hear what Kevin, Esther, and Hugh have to say. This came up the last time we talked about middle, and the feedback I got was that we should all talk about everything. We should each say, here's my feedback on the recommendations presented, give it all, and then go to the next person. Staff, is that most helpful to you, or would you rather we divide up the discussion among the 3 segments?
I mean, I think we're flexible on how the discussion goes, Chair, and so you can choose that. But I think we would like to hear like distinct chunks of information, because these things do kind of mix and match. And I do wonder if it could get quite long and discursive. It might help to start with the bike lanes and kind of go through that, and then
let's do that.
I'm sure we'll come back to it, but that's okay.
That's fine. Appreciate this suggestion for sure. Okay, so let's Hugh and Esther, can you help us then before we dive in to define the segments how we want to structure the conversation? The first segment will be talking about bike lanes and potential parking removal. on-street parking, okay. And then the second section would be intersection design,
Right.
okay. And then the third section is
Traffic calming. So the additional
traffic
traffic.
calming. Okay, so let's start. We're gonna have three sections. The first is on-street parking and bike infrastructure. Second is intersection design. And third is traffic calming. All right. Katie, since you were the first to speak, would you like to make comments about on-street parking and bike infrastructure?
Sure, and I'll try to keep it brief. Okay. So first of all, I totally appreciate all the different options that staff have put forward. And I think that maybe what we're going to want to do is a phased approach, because I think that the bike traffic that we see today is not the same as the bike traffic we might have 3 years from now, or 5 years or 10 years, as that long bike corridor gets built out and SRI gets built out, et cetera. So to start with, I think, I mean, maybe I'm being too conservative here, but I hear the concerns about removing all parking, especially in sections like the area with the multifamily housing where a lot of people are currently parking, and also close to Blake if we do end up piloting a closure of Blake. And so I guess I think starting with piloting like leaving parking in some places seems reasonable to me. Specifically, when I'm thinking about where to leave parking, I want to make sure that anywhere where we don't have a sidewalk, we're not reducing the available space to 7 feet, including bikes, if that makes any sense. So right now there's a really wide sort of margin that's being shared by parked cars, pedestrians, and cyclists. And I don't like the idea that there's ever a place on Middle Avenue where there's neither a sidewalk nor that sort of space where cars can park, but only a bike lane, if that makes sense. Am I being clear? Staff, do you? Okay.
Staff?
I think we understand what you're saying.
Yeah, so where there's a gap in sidewalk infrastructure, like let's have more space so that cyclists can pass pedestrians, because there are a lot of pedestrians there. I'm also going to take this opportunity to advocate heavily for lobbying council for that $4 million or whatever it takes to get that sidewalk completed. I think there are tons of people who walk there. There will be more. And as we have more bike traffic and more car traffic, which we know we will have in the future, we're going to need more separation for pedestrians. Like even as it is now, it's not great. So I'm hoping that we can work towards that as a goal. And I imagine council would support that as well. I mean, I know it's expensive. So the other thing, I think I would hold off on the two-way bike lane for now, for reasons that I thought former Commissioner Levin mentioned, for Safeway exit reasons, and also because I don't think we can get away with having a two-way bike lane on one side and a one-way bike lane on the other side. And I'm concerned that people need to be biking on both sides of the street. So maybe that's something that as we start to understand how people are using the facility and how people are accessing the parks, and if we see a lot of kids riding on the wrong side of the road, maybe we need to revisit that. But maybe for starters, let's just do like a normal looking bike lane, the kind that we have in other parts of the city. I think that was it. I'm like looking at my notes here. Were there any other questions you had specific to bike lanes or parking?
No, that was, you covered everything I had in my notes that they covered. Okay.
Okay, so that's me. Yeah.
Thank you.
With the understanding that down the road, like when there's different usage cases and different numbers and different kinds of traffic, we should maybe explore some of these sort of more secure options. But yeah, for now.
Okay. Any other commissioners have feedback on on-street parking and bike infrastructure? None?
Oh, I do.
Oh, yes, sorry, is your hand up? Where are
That's
you?
all right.
Oh, there
I
you
just
are,
put it
Jeff.
up.
Can see it. Sorry.
So I'm kind of inclined to agree with definitely removing parking on one side of the street. Like I think that isn't a fairly easy choice to pick, because the bike lane situation as it is right now, like it's not a good fit at all. Like there's too many cars parked on both sides of the street, and every time there's cars parked, like there's no leeway for the doors, so you have to go into traffic. And when anyway, so definitely support eliminating parking on one side. In the grand scheme of things, like, would it be great if down the road we were able to eliminate parking on both sides so that we could have more robust bike lanes all the way up this corridor, which gets really heavily used? I think that's awesome, but there are a lot of people who rent apartments that only had one space, and there are a lot of cars that live on the street outside those apartment complexes, because I ride by 180 days a year, and like some of those cars don't move. And so what I'm saying is some of those apartments don't have space for all those all the cars of the people who live there. And while I am 100% in agreement that as things change and we get more bikes, that hopefully we'll have less cars, and maybe those kids will learn to ride bikes to each other's houses instead of driving over to each other's houses. But we are where we are right now, and I think that part of a measure would be better than none of a measure. So I would be in support of eliminating one side car parking. And then one of my concerns with the four-way stop at San Mateo is, frankly, is bikes not stopping. Like, I can see that becoming a hot problem at that intersection. And it's super annoying when the cars all sit there for the bike that's not even there yet because they're pretty sure the bike won't stop. Like, anyway, that's just a problem I have. I'm sure we can enforcement our way or something out of it. But the Safeway left turn restriction, is that not part of this conversation? Okay,
I don't think so.
Okay, then I'll stop right there. And otherwise, like, I support all the blinky lights and all the other things that have come up, and yes to sidewalks. Sorry, is this just parking? Okay, I went way out of my lane there.
No,
so
you
sorry.
didn't. You didn't. We stopped you. We curbed you.
Okay.
Okay, so I'll go. I'm not seeing any other hands up, so I'll go as fast as I can. Okay, I'm actually, my feedback on parking and bike lanes is, I'm a strong supporter in no parking on either side of the road. I think, as I think about Middle, and man, I've gone up and down Middle since May 11th and thought about it a lot. I feel like we really need to focus and simplify the experience, to again promote the ease of use by bikes and peds, partly because there are a lot of kids. So I just feel like keep it simple. I know at one point in her presentation, Esther said, should treatments vary across the corridor? And that kind of stuff makes me a little bit nervous, because I feel like, yes, in some places potentially, but we have to keep in mind that ease of use and just the simplicity, I think, is what we should be after. But when Esther talked about no parking on either side of the road, she said that the negatives to that were vehicles could pass, right, and impact residents on Middle. So I think my suggestion would be, can the staff look a little further into if there are particular areas where parking is critical to the use of the street, for example, in the multifamily areas, then maybe we do consider some targeted exceptions. But for the most part, I mean, I think that might be worthy of a bit more study. But my general feeling is we should eliminate parking wherever we possibly can. In terms of the sidewalks, 100%. I will be one of those people who will lobby the city council for the 4 million, because I really do think we can't make this project feel like it's all about bikes. And I think that pedestrians use Middle like crazy. And the last thing is, I also agree, the two-way bike lane, it got me a bit nervous just in the way that would work. I kept looking at that diagram and just wondering about, as Dina pointed out, like as it flows into the intersections, would that be confusing for pedestrians? So I agree with that as well. Last thing, Commissioner Seabreen brought up this interesting point about will bikes stop at the San Mateo Avenue intersection. It's a very interesting point, San Mateo Drive. So I wonder if staff can think about that. Maybe there are other places in Menlo Park or other, jurisdictions where they've thought about ways to sign intersections to ensure that bikes know they should stop as well, because that's a very heavy crossing with bikes, and it's going to be very confusing if bikes don't stop. Okay. Anyone else on the commission have feedback on the issue of on-street parking and bike lanes and sidewalks? Actually, sidewalk gaps we put in there. Okay. All right, then. Let's ask for, I'm now asking for commissioners' feedback on intersection design. This includes, Esther, correct me if I'm wrong, but this includes the Middle and El Camino intersection, the Safeway and gas station exits, that thing. I believe.
Yes, I can share a screen to.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay.
Let's look exactly at what we're commenting on. Great, University and Olive. Okay, so this does not include traffic calming measures at Blake, Arbor, and San Mateo. Okay, right,
So,
thank you. Thank you.
Just one reminder, bulb out is considered as a traffic calming measure in our case. So for
In
Olive
Olive.
Street,
Yeah.
it would be considered under traffic calming.
Okay, so for Olive, we're only talking about the removing the right turn pocket. Okay. Can we leave this up?
Yes.
I think this is useful if other commissioners agree. So this is what we're providing feedback on, Commissioner Baruzzi.
So I like the staff recommendations. Okay, wait, so El Camino Rail intersection design, I think eventually we're going to be having bike lanes on El Camino. That seems to be the consensus in the valley, that we're going to turn this into a bicycle superhighway, and I'm a believer. So I know that eventually we're going to have changes there. But to start out, I think whatever feels safe that doesn't require takings is probably fine. I'm really conflicted on the Safeway exit. I've driven out of the Safeway parking lot, and I feel fairly certain that if my choices were to wait for a gap in traffic and go to the new U-turn at a signal at Middle, or do a tour of David Alfano's neighborhood, I'm pretty sure I would make the choice that doesn't take me on a detour through David's neighborhood, even though I know him to be a really interesting and nice guy. Like it just does, like one of those things is more efficient and safer than the other. But at the same time, I get that this is a tough change for people. And so I guess what I would love to see is a lot more data on turning movements. The other thing that was occurring to me as we were talking about this is this feels like the kind of thing for which there is a universal standard. So you know how you guys have universal visibility standards for intersections, where if the speed is X and the angle is Y, then we need at least, Z feet of red curb. There must be a sort of window of like an acceptable standard for merging across traffic at speeds of 35 to 40 miles an hour, and like sort of the length that's a reasonable length for people to use for that, right? And like looking at Hugh's face. So I guess I would like staff to think a little bit harder about that, but maybe if we're not doing a two-way bike, thing there, maybe holding off on changes at Safeway until we see more of what happens once Stanford is occupied and the Middle El Camino intersection becomes a four-way intersection. I do think looking at leading signals for pedestrians and bikes, looking at turn restrictions on red, things like that would be super useful. I know the no right turn on red has made a huge difference at the intersection of El Camino Real and Sandhill. So Caltrans approved that. And because that's a major bike and peg crossing, I felt a lot more comfortable taking my son to Oak Knoll that way when we used to live in Lumfield Oaks. So I feel like that's something I would like to see staff continuing to look into. And okay, so I'm really keen on this roundabout idea. And I know one commenter had asked if that means the stop signs will go away. And the answer is yes, that's exactly what it means. And I think this is being pitched as a traffic calming idea, and it's true that drivers will slow down, but I think it's also a smoothing thing. So I know that at certain times of day, that that University Middle intersection gets really backed up because of all the school traffic. And ostensibly, if the science is right on this, that will be much less awful if we have a roundabout there. I know too that people have expressed concerns about merging, about how cyclists are going to have to merge into the travel lane there if they are going to use the roundabout. But the thing is that they already do if they're going to turn left. So a very frequent turning movement for cyclists is you're heading towards Safeway on Middle Avenue. And then, because why would you continue to bike down towards the chaos that is Middle and El Camino, you're going to turn left into the beautiful bike lanes on University. So to do that, you're supposed to merge into the traffic lane. I see kids not doing that sometimes, like turning left across cars that are going straight and weird stuff like that. But basically, I think actually having a roundabout there would enforce smarter cyclist behavior when it comes to making those turns. And it would slow everybody down. I noticed when I looked at the accident history of that intersection that there were a number of broadside accidents where I think somebody must have run a stop sign. And so you wouldn't have that with the roundabout. So I love roundabouts. They're great on Stanford. I encourage people who are not familiar with them to go familiarize yourself with the ones and how they work on Stanford campus. And I hope we can learn from Stanford's great experience installing those. I know John Donahoe was here earlier. I feel like Stanford has probably had a 5-year time period in which to learn what's a best practice for installing a roundabout and how to, make sure it works for everybody. And I think this is a great opportunity for us to pilot something that is working all over the world to improve safety and efficiency of intersections. Okay, so I'll shut up now because that's really the main thing I had to say about intersections. Yay, roundabouts.
Thank you, Commissioner Baruzzi. Commissioner Sebrian?
Okay, I would also like to, okay, I'm gonna just go down this list of things so I can keep myself straight. The Safeway thing, I am 100% in favor of us not limiting turns out of that driveway, right, like today. I think as we have discussions about what, to everything Katie said, but I just don't see it. At the end of the day, there is a safety issue, but also there's kind of a fairness issue. There is one grocery store and everybody on the other side of El Camino has no good grocery store. So this is the one, and now we propose to make it a boatload more complicated for people to leave with their groceries when it's already a pain to get over there. So I think, I get that it's a problematic intersection. I think we should leave it as it is and talk to Safeway and see, because I also see that traffic just getting pushed onto Roble and onto Menlo and just busying up Trader Joe's because it's a lot easier to turn left out of that parking lot. I just see that causing people to change their shopping patterns and not go to Safeway or worse, do all those other things. So I am not in favor of a term restriction. And if we did consider a term restriction, I think it would need to be limited by highly impacted hours. It doesn't need to be that way at 10 o'clock in the morning or 10 o'clock at night. So that is a consideration. Anyway, that's that. I love the idea of the roundabout and the right turn pocket at Olive Street with the bike lanes. I think that to the discussion about parking removal, that part of what makes that particular section complicated is that there's almost always cars parked there. So then you've got to figure out anyway, so parking restriction would go with that removal of the right turn pocket, I assume. Right? Or yeah. And is that it? Yeah, I think those are my major notes I had about that.
Great. Thank you, Commissioner Sebrian. Any other commissioners before I provide my feedback? I want to make sure everyone has spoken, wants to speak. Okay. I had a couple of questions actually on this. First thing I want to raise is on the El Camino intersection. I think when David Alfano was making his public comment, he asked for clarification. I think he said something like the issue of if you're turning from Middle north and turning left northbound El Camino Real, that's happening at the same time that pedestrians are crossing. And he asked about that and asked if that was going to be addressed, I think. And so I'm just raising that now because it was a question made by a member of the public and I don't know whether the staff can answer that.
I can speak to that real quick, Chair Cole. So that's correct. That's how it works today, and there are potentially changes that we could make, or that could be made, I should say, because they're not ours to make alone, to address that. And so some of the things that we've discussed tonight, like a leading pedestrian interval, would allow certain kinds of movements to happen first before they get a green light. Alternatively, the other things that we could do to separately signalize the left turn lanes and some things like that. But so we definitely are talking about looking into potential signal changes as part of the overall intersection work that we're going to do. That'll take a little bit more time because of the need to coordinate and work through the Caltrans process on those. We can report back on that.
Thank you very much. I also just want to stress that Commissioner Altman did bring up this idea about exploring no right turn on red El Camino, and I'm wondering if we can just make sure to fold that in. It seems like it's all quite related. Okay, now for my comments were simply this. So with the El Camino, this thing about restricting the turns off of Safeway, I actually think, first of all, I really appreciate Commissioner Cibrian's perspective around not the lack of availability of groceries for people, grocery stores for people across the street. I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, don't make it more complicated for them to go. It's already hard. As a question of fairness, I thought that was an excellent point, Commissioner Cibrian. For me, I actually think that the other things you're doing as the goal that Hugh articulated was to reduce conflict. I think the other thing you're doing about moving the driveways and eliminating the egress for out of the gas station are going to calm that area down a lot. So in the end, I don't think the turn restriction is necessary because I think the other things are going to be quite effective, and I appreciate their design. And also, as Susan said in her public comment, I do agree that the alternative about exiting and then doing the U-turn and crossing all those lanes of traffic, I agree with her that gave me stomach pains when I thought about crossing all those lanes of traffic at night just to make a U-turn on El Camino going northbound. So I agree with her there. Okay, the question I had about the gas station was this. I couldn't quite tell from the diagram, but I completely agree. And I love that we're closing the driveway out of the gas station that's the closest to the intersection. But I couldn't quite understand if we were then only allowing entrance from Middle to the gas station through that street, or was there going to continue to be a driveway next to the street that cars could enter the gas station through? That was not clear to me. Like, are there two ways to enter the gas station, the street or the driveway there? Or is it one way? Is that clear what I said? Or no? Oh, thank you. Here we go, maps. Yeah, so if I'm wrong about this, please excuse me, but I thought that you could also get into the gas station, not just on Alto Lane, but just sort of between Alto Lane and the entrance into the gas station that you're showing that's quite close to the intersection. I thought there was another driveway there into the gas station. Is that not true?
I believe there's only one driveway on Middle Avenue, and then Alto Lane is a public street that is and can be used as access point for gas stations. Okay, thank you.
I can just add real quick there. Visually, as you pull into Alto Lane, I think it will look to you like you're pulling into the gas station. It's like very much looks like it's kind of in the gas station. Okay. Alto Lane is it's not like a regular, it's an alley. It's not like a regular street. So that would be why.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you. I was just a little confused there, but I think so happy to see that you're eliminating that driveway near the intersection. It's always been crazy. Okay, so back to the summary. Commissioner Baruzzi said earlier, I just really love all the suggestions along here. I think eliminating the right turn pocket is a huge thumbs up. I will say the roundabout terrifies me a little bit because when I think of Olive, it doesn't feel like there's enough room. But I appreciate the perspective of people like, Katie and also Commissioner Seabrand, Commissioner Baruzzi, who are biking on the street a lot. I do use the roundabouts at Stanford a lot, and I do think they're very good. Again, when I think about kids using the streets, they're not necessarily, riding their bikes with the same maybe authority or knowledge that or competence as maybe, Stanford students. But so that's why I wanted to eliminate any sort of points of confusion or complication in this plan. And the mini roundabouts came out to me as one of those that kind of worried me a bit about kids navigating that. Maybe I'm underestimating them. But when you say mini roundabout, it makes me think that the center area of it would be very small, therefore allowing enough room for the roundabout to actually work well in that small intersection. I think what I see with the roundabouts at Stanford is that they're big enough so people entering them have like a little bit of time to kind of figure out what's going on and to anticipate the flow and sort of see where they're going. So there's not a lot of people, there's just time as you approach to see how that's going. And it just seems like that's very compressed in the space of the University Drive intersection. So I'm not clear yet on, I'm not a big supporter of this yet, but I could be convinced. Those are my comments. Do commissioners have any other comments on intersection design? Oh, Commissioner Altman.
Yeah, thanks. Not a big fan of the solutions for Safeway. The right turn, I think, would have an adverse effect. But relocating the driveway down middle, I think, actually moves some of the problem closer to Nealon Park and a lot more kids. So I'm not clear about how moving a driveway would actually benefit and could actually move a lot of that goofy behavior closer to kids on bikes at Nealon. So maybe there's other solutions for this complex problem for Safeway. Maybe phasing of a light on El Camino might help, get traffic through there and prevent the backups. I don't know. I'm just concerned that there doesn't seem like a good choice so far. I can be convinced about the mini roundabout. I'd like to see what that design actually looks like and maybe some modeling of actually, bike traffic through it. I think it'd be good as an experiment. And if it were an experiment, I think it'd be good to engage the community in it as an experiment, because I think two things will happen. One, we'll get feedback from the community, but two, we'll also educate the community on this alternative, right? So if there's a way that we could, get some feedback, or if the community already gave us feedback about the roundabout, it would be good to maybe turn that around for them. So thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Allman. Anyone else before we move on to the next topic, which is traffic calming measures? Do we have a summary slide of that as well, Esther, that we can, there you go, perfect. All right, then, if everyone can just take a look at this. I don't know if any further explanation is required since we saw the slides. So let's just move to commissioner feedback on all of this or any pieces of this. Does any commissioners have feedback to start off? Commissioner Bruzy?
I can go. I think these are all great. I think people go way too fast on middle in general. And as many things as and I also think that crossing middle is hard for people, which is why we see things like kids riding the wrong way on the wrong side of the street sometimes. And I would like there to be sort of a more gentle pattern of traffic flow. And I think these things will facilitate that. So as many things as we can do that will jive with what the fire district requires of us, et cetera, would be great. The one thing I wanted to ask about the bulb out curb extension on middle. I wonder if we can see that visual again at University and middle. Great. Oh yeah, here. So this was one thing that I was, this is actually something that we just, that we were just dealing with on, in Belhaven. I think I'm going to be inconsistent here. I think this is fine, but if we're going to do this, I would love to see us do the roundabout, because if you're going to have to merge in traffic anyway as a cyclist, because it looks like you are, I mean, there's not like a straight path. Q, you want to say something?
Yeah, Commissioner Rizzi, if I can just jump in. So this is a very simplified visual and that we wanted just to quickly produce to make it clear that we would be potentially removing the right, like the options we were talking about here are mini roundabout or removing the right turn pockets. So it uses basically the same visual with some of the pieces removed, but it wouldn't look really like this. The bike lanes would essentially continue, and especially if we were pursuing a direction where one side of parking were made, the bulb out essentially is in the parking lane primarily. We might tighten up the intersection a little bit, but we would provide, much as we do at an intersection where there are regular bike lanes, continuous bike lane all the way to the intersection. So don't read too much into the visual.
Okay, great. Thank you. That's helpful. Though I guess the one thing I'll say is, and I'm sure you've already started analyzing turning movements, and we'll know a lot more once Stanford opens. But I do know that a lot of people turn left from, in this dimension, I guess, eastbound Middle onto University, and I see a lot of dangerous turning behavior, for lack of a better word. And so if there are green paint solutions that can indicate to cyclists where they need to put their bikes and where they need to merge safely in order to get across that intersection, that would be, I think, especially, if we're not doing a roundabout, that would be something I would recommend. Otherwise, that's all I've got to say. Okay, can we go back to the summary slide? Thank you. Okay, does anyone have anything else they want to say about these traffic calming measures? Commissioner Cibrian?
I would only say that I support them all. Like all the things that make traffic flow better and smoother and make it easier for pedestrians and slow cars down.
Excellent. Katie, your hand is up. Excuse me, Commissioner Bruzy, is that intentional? No? Gone. Okay, thank you, Commissioner Cibrian. I agree. I thought these were really excellent. I appreciate that the staff really considered the issues at each intersection and thought of the best way to address those issues through these different measures. I thought there was a lot of customization and obviously really good thought that went into them. So I really commend the staff for the work they did. I thought it was interesting that there was no speed feedback signs, which I see a lot of these days around here. But recently I'd reflected that maybe the speed feedback signs aren't that effective because they're appealing to people who, want not to speed, right? Because then they slow down. Whereas maybe if you sort of force them not to speed through some of these other things, it's a more effective way to enforce that. But I agree. I thought this was all really good. So if we have.
Chair Cole, if I may.
Yes, please go right ahead.
We do, just so you're clear, we do have speed feedback signs identified at 4 locations, so 2 on each side.
Oh, okay. Sorry about that.
So if you want to say that you don't think we should do that, we're
No. I guess my point was a little bit philosophical, which was when I see a speed feedback sign, I slow down. But then I was thinking, well, maybe others don't. But actually now, if you have them and these other measures, you're basically appealing to, you're trying to motivate people in a variety of ways, which I think is effective and I think is good. So thank you for clarifying. All right, then. Well, let's see. At this point, I guess we should be moving to a motion and a second for recommendation. Kevin, would you agree? I think if that's the case, let me just quickly look and see what I heard. It sounds like the motion could be, maybe we make the motion for the bike infrastructure and on-street parking was to explore, I think the motion would be to explore prioritizing filling in the gaps, exploring the, measure of filling in the gaps in the sidewalks, and maybe, oh, sorry, Commissioner Cibrian, do you have a comment, or is your hand just up? Oh, no, sorry, okay. So maybe the motion from the commission on bike infrastructure and parking is we would suggest looking into the costs and feasibility of the filling in the gaps in the sidewalks because we believe it prioritizes pedestrian safety, which should be an important aspect of this project. And I personally felt that could we do a bit more exploration about are there some places we would leave parking? Actually, Commissioner Bruzy said this as well. could we do a bit more work or exploration of if we left parking, which parts of Middle Avenue, where would that occur? Where would that be in some places?
Is that a question or a part of the motion?
A part of the motion that we are asking the staff to explore whether if we left parking in some places along Middle, where would there be a need? Now, that's just my proposal of those two parts of the motion.
Can I add a bit of color to that at risk of making the motion too long?
Sure. Okay.
I'd love staff to consider as factors that I heard mentioned the need around the multifamily housing and what happens to pedestrians in the meantime before we build the $4 million sidewalks. So ensuring that if we're leaving flux in the system in the form of on-street parking that is not utilized that frequently, that it would be probably good to do it on the side of the street that doesn't have sidewalks, so that there's more space for pedestrians and bikes to pass each other. Did that make sense to other people?
Well, how about this? Why don't we make this into, and Kevin, let me know, or Hugh, let me know if this does not sound right to you. But what if we have one motion be, we support the removal of on-street parking, but request that staff explore, and help me out here, Katie, because this is your add-on, explore leaving parking in some places based on, and then Katie can fill in the language. Or looking at, does that make sense?
Yes. So in the near term, leaving some parking on, as staff has suggested, that we consider with a focus on the heavily utilized on-street parking next to the multifamily housing. That's part A. And then part B is leaving that parking lane available for use by pedestrians on the side of Middle where there is no sidewalk. Is that clear as mud?
If I might ask a question, I think that there might be a little bit of conflict between those two things, because I think the multifamily housing is generally on one side of the street and the sidewalks are generally, without sidewalks are generally on the other side of the street. And we were wanting to follow up and ask if there was, and I felt like we heard this maybe implicitly, but not explicitly from the commission, if you had sort of had a preference or a belief about which side was more appropriate. And I think essentially, Commissioner Bruzzi, what I'm hearing you say is that, well, both, because they both have different characteristics that might be appropriate for parking. And so we don't necessarily have to figure that out tonight. I think we can take that as input potentially and kind of sort of present those as options. And one thing that you can recommend to us, and that we have been carrying forward options. You don't necessarily have to say like we think there is just one option. You can tell us to present a couple options to council, and I think that would be reasonable. And they'll probably want to see options anyway, or at least be aware of all the options, and may have different choices they want to make. So we'll certainly give them full information when we move forward from here. But yeah, just wanted to be clear about the implications of some of those things.
Okay, so the motion could be that the commission, that we recommend exploring different, presenting different options to the council, looking into the need of preserving parking in some places, evaluating the need. Can we leave it at that, Katie?
Yeah, I think so. And the other thing we had mentioned, which I forgot to bring up just now, was bus stops. So bus stops, the multifamily housing where people park on the street all the time, and the place where we don't have sidewalks and people are currently using the parking lane as a sidewalk. Those would be like the three things that I think would be interesting to work around as you're figuring out where to keep parking, where to remove parking. Cyprian, are you on board with that? Does that make sense to you?
Commissioner Cyprian?
Can I ask one clarifying thing in there in that long one? And it may be contained in there and I just missed it, but like that this top statement is that we support some level of parking removal, right? So, but that we have some, are there options to make it not as extreme as any of the things that have been presented? Is that kind of what we're saying?
I think in the beginning, you got it right in the beginning, which is we support parking
Some
removal.
level of parking removal, like
Yes.
it is, whether it's one, like it sounds like there's some, it'd be great if we could take all the parking off of Middle and make these big glorious, all the lanes, but okay. I
So we
just wanted
support
to,
level of parking removal and ask the staff to explore the implications of that in the areas that Commissioner Bruzy cited, including multifamily, places where people are using the bike lane to walk in, and bus stops. Consider those externalities. So is that the motion?
Sure. Does any other commissioner have things they want to add to that or clarify before we vote on it? Okay. One thing, Chair, I just realized that we didn't actually talk about, even the commenters talked about it and staff talked about it, was the pilot to close off Blake.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I don't know where, is that traffic calming? Was that under traffic calming?
Maybe. I don't
think it might not have been in that's the reason I think it was not. Maybe
I think it wasn't in the recommendations that were being requested. Does staff want a recommendation on that?
I think so, but can we get to that when we talk about traffic calming?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we don't forget
Yeah.
it. I was just remembering.
Okay. So that's the motion about we agree with, some level of parking removal, considering the externalities, or asking the staff to do evaluate those externalities. I'm going to make the motion. Is anyone second? Okay, Commissioner Bruzy, Commissioner Sebrian. Oh, sorry. Where's Kevin? Kevin, you do this part. Sorry.
Yes. No. Thank you for getting that started. So we do have a motion by Chair, and then I'm going to say the second by Commissioner Bruzy for the motion stated. Just maybe give a second to the other commissioners if the motion is clear to you, if you need any further clarifications before I ask for a vote. I'm going to take that as in it's clear. So in that case, for those commissioners that would like to vote yes to the motion, if you can just raise your hand and hold it up for me for a few seconds. I'm seeing unanimous votes. Great, thank you very much.
Okay, let me see if I can, I might not be the best person at motions, but I'll give it my try on sidewalks. So the commission, my motion here is that the commission express support for filling in the sidewalk gaps in the interest of pedestrian safety, and supports allocating the necessary budget. Is that okay, Kevin?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, that's my motion. Commissioner Sebrian is seconding it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. So in that case, again, commissioners that would like to vote affirmative or yes vote to this motion, please raise your hand. I am seeing unanimous votes. Great, thank you very much.
Okay. Now in going to intersection design. Okay, this was Safeway turn. This was Roundabout. This was moving driveway. Do we want to make a motion about the turn restriction on Safeway, maybe not favoring it? It feels like no one was in support. I don't know, but I guess we could say as a motion, just we believe that the conflicts in that area of Middle have been addressed through the other elements of the design, and do not support the turn restriction coming out of Safeway on Middle.
I think we don't know what the conflicts are going to be, and I feel like the prudent thing here to do is wait and see. So at this time, I wouldn't support making changes like turn restrictions And I do think it's going to be important for city staff to monitor what happens once Stanford opens and to look at where there might be conflicts or new, accidents. Or, I mean, is that a reasonable thing to do, to suggest that they don't make a change now, but that they monitor how behavior changes around the Safeway parking lot? And
Yeah, I mean, we could make it, oh, sorry, Commissioner Seagreen?
No, I totally agree with what Katie just said. I was kind of thinking along that, like, basically that our recommendation is that we not institute a term restriction coming out of the Safeway parking lot, but that staff look at it and see how things go. And also, as that new light gets moving and you're able to make that U-turn onto El Camino, like, we'll be able to see, like, does that really work before we decide to make everybody do it. So it would be interesting to have that light function the way it's supposed to before we decide that's going to be the avenue we're going. So I fully support that.
So Commissioner Seagreen, do you want to make the motion?
Sure. And this is just a separate, are we just making a separate tiny little motion for the left turn restriction? Or are we making a motion to approve all of the intersection treatments except that we don't like the left turn restriction coming out of Safeway?
Okay, that is fair enough, except then we'd be saying, can we make a separate motion on the roundabout saying that we want to explore it further or add that to the motion? Like, we support the direction of the intersection design plan recommendations.
Madam Chair?
Yes, please, go ahead.
I think it might be sort of easier and cleaner if we go ahead and keep the motion to just the two driveways. So the gas station driveway, the elimination of it sounds like there's general support for that. So we'll include that as part of the motion. Seems like the motion is to essentially hold off the left turn until further study and occupancy of the Middle Plaza. What about the relocation of the Safeway driveway itself? So not pertaining to any turn restriction, but moving it further, more towards, more away from El Camino. Is that something that the commission would support exploring? Or is that something we want to kind of move off the table? It seems like there's some general support with maybe Commissioner Altman sharing some concerns.
I would support looking at it, but I would, I think I added earlier, I would also look at that intersection on El Camino exiting from Safeway. If you're going to move one, like, it seems to make sense to move the other one further from the intersection as well. So if we're moving, as long as that's part of the conversation, if we can include both of them, that's fine.
Yeah, I agree. And I kind of feel like this also fits into the wait and see what happens category. Because I think you learn a lot from the natural flow of human behavior once Middle Plaza has opened. And it sounded like it was going to take a long time to sort it out with the private landowner anyway. Like, we're not going to be able to wave a magic wand. So fine to start having those discussions and collecting data. But I think it'll be most telling to see what happens once that traffic signal is changed and Middle Plaza is up and running. So
can I clarify about the driveway question from the gas station, since it's part of the same motion? We're talking about eliminating ingress and egress from the driveway that's right closest to the intersection. Is that correct? And then all cars getting in or out of the gas station from Middle would be using Alta Lane or whatever, right?
Exactly.
Okay. Okay. Yes. I support that.
Commissioner Seagreen, do you want to make the motion then?
Okay, so I move that we do not make a turn restriction coming out of the Safeway parking lot, but that we do some future investigation to see how things go when Middle Plaza opens and have discussions with Safeway about what it looks like to move those parking lots, and that we restrict cars going into or out of the gas station at the driveway closest to the intersection on Middle.
Correct. I second that.
Awesome.
Okay, great. So I have a motion and a second on the table. I'm sorry, Commissioner Altman, do you have
I'd like to add to that, that proposal is fine, but add to gathering a little bit more information about the roundabout to actually see what the bike pattern would be through there because now there's the bulb outs and then there's the mini roundabout. It looks like it's a little tiny space between the bulb out and the center of the roundabout. And just for, peace of mind, just say, okay, show us a little bit how that traffic would flow through there if you're on a bike or pedestrian, that type of thing, just to be sure there's enough space. And just add that to that proposal, just saying we want a little bit more information about the actual infrastructure to the roundabout.
I think we're not at the roundabout one yet. I agree that I think we're
Maybe should that be a separate motion, Kevin?
Yeah, we were going to do a separate motion on roundabout, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, we still have one for
right.
kind of
Sorry about
church
that.
calming, which then incorporates
Thanks for the reminder.
section. So, yes, but yeah. Okay, great. So I have a motion and a second on the table. So again, this is pertaining to just the driveways at the gas station and Safeway. If the commissions would like to vote yes to, if you can raise your hand and then hold it up for a couple seconds. I see unanimous votes. Great, thank you.
Okay, so let's do roundabout.
Can I make a suggestion that we encourage staff to consider a pilot? That staff work with, I think, again, John Donahoe had suggested that I think some of the same engineers that have worked with Stanford and have possibly been working on this exact challenge might be available for consultation. I don't know if that's true as far up as Middle University, but if it is, it would be great to work with them and see, is there a feasible pilot so that, and what's the right length of the pilot, right? Probably not 2 weeks. But if it's possible to sort of simulate what it would feel like and get people used to the idea before it turns into something really expensive that people hate, that would be great.
Can you clarify by which part will we be doing the pilot on?
Can we pilot a roundabout? Is there a way of doing that in the space allowed, or is it just not feasible because you need more space? That's my question, I guess. And if it's possible, if staff think it's feasible, then I would love to have that be part of the motion.
I would like to offer the opinion that I would not support a pilot of the roundabout. I do support consulting with Stanford, the experience with roundabouts and how to design one in a space of that size, but we're already potentially piloting Blake. I think there is support for that. And I just think there's a lot going on. I'd prefer for the city to really work with Stanford and other experts in roundabout areas to see if that's the right solution and commit to it rather than doing a pilot. And that sounds expensive to me as well in terms of installing it and taking it out and all that. So it doesn't sound like the right idea for me. Or at least I wouldn't support that motion. I don't know if anyone else has an opinion on that or.
Could I do a straw poll? Because we didn't have, I know there are a couple commissioners who didn't weigh in on this particular topic. Where are people generally on roundabout? If you're in favor of the roundabout concept, do you want to raise your hand?
Or we could even just say, are you okay, or in favor of well, there's really two issues here. In favor of it is one thing, but then in favor of doing more partnering with and Hugh and Esther, please chime in if you've already done this, but if there's more, if you think it's helpful to have more exploration or discussion with experts at Stanford or whomever around effectiveness in that particular place.
Commissioner Coleman has a hand up.
Excuse me, hold on. Commissioner Coleman?
Yeah, so no, I do appreciate the roundabout design that they have showed us. It does signify a safer, slower travel around University and Middle. Of course, bikes and pedestrians may have to mix in between those lanes and that roundabout. That may be unsafe, but if we can slow cars down even before the roundabout, alerting them of bikes, pedestrians crossing, whether that's with flashing lights or speed signs, and that would be really helpful for the roundabout.
Thank you, Commissioner Coleman.
Chair Cole, I
as-
think you had roughly a question, and maybe I can say one or two things about the mini roundabout just to help provide some information to clarify your motion making. So one thing to know is that the roundabout, the dimensions of the street, like the existing street width, are generally speaking sufficient to build an acceptable mini roundabout in that space, right? So there is not a question of needing additional dimension for that. So it fits basically, and it fits per kind of existing federal and there's some very nice state guides actually coming out now on how to build different kinds of roundabouts. So it would work in that location, and it would work in the way you all have been kind of describing it. So it's not a question of like, are there roundabouts this size or not in this kind of configuration? There are, and they do exist. So we just want to make sure folks were aware that this isn't sort of a guess at that. We've actually done some measurements just to make sure that we were even suggesting something that was feasible. And then people have done pilot roundabouts in the past. It has been done, and it's done often with a combination of bollards and hay bales and other things like that to help create some of it. It's not perfect. A lot of it would be more or less relying on people to follow paint because, you know, just to explain the way roundabouts work, right, is that as you approach the roundabout, those islands sort of force you to adjust the movement of your vehicle. And that's the key feature of a roundabout. The circle itself is important, obviously, because that you circle around it, but it's the making people sort of turn their path of travel, which forces them to slow down. That is the major safety, the thing that impacts safety the most. So we have to think about how we mimic that well, but it is definitely possible to do it. But that's not to say that I think we should or shouldn't do it, but that's just to say that we could in fact do a pilot if technically possible, and we'd have to think about the sort of trade-offs among that versus just installing one. So.
I'd be curious. Thank you, Hugh, for the factual answers. I'd be curious if staff has a position about whether it lends itself well, this particular type of measure, the investment it require, whatever, like lends itself well to a pilot.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that I don't necessarily have an answer off the top of my head for that. I'd want to give it some thought and talk to staff a little bit to be sure about that. And I think for me, probably the real trade-off is that roundabouts are new. I think I said this earlier, and they're not, they're not new actually. They're all over the place, but they're new to us, right? And so when you bring in a new treatment like this, it can cause some confusion. So the trade-off might be like, is there value in sort of helping people get comfortable with it before making it permanent, which would be a lot better than building it and taking it back out again if people aren't comfortable. So that's kind of the trade-off I think we'd want to think through. And that's something that I think, we can always take as sort of general direction from you all to think about and present sort of some ideas. And at that point, we could sort of cost out also like what's the level of effort it would take to do a temporary one, how long would we do it, how would we sort of monitor and manage it, because that is, if you're using temporary materials, it works well for certain kinds of things. It doesn't work for everything, so we'd want to do a little bit of work to think about that, and we could certainly carry, you could make that as part of your motion for us to look into it and present some options as part of the presentation to council.
Thank you. Commissioner Altman, when we were talking about Safeway before and you wanted us to remember doing a motion on the roundabout, what was the language that you were suggesting?
I was interested in just having it modeled or just shown like what the bicycle path would be through the roundabout, just as two reasons. One, just for my own clarification, and two, is a way of helping the community understand what was going on there. So something like a model or saying, this is how it would work, this would happen, some visualization would make me feel more comfortable about it, but also be used as a tool to get some community engagement and feedback and help educate the community so that they knew what to do, or some mechanism. What's a standard practice for introducing a change like this in a community? What kind of outreach? You guys have done just a fantastic job. Just such a great job with middle, getting people engaged and participating. And I thought this might be an opportunity to do it as well.
Okay, I like that. Okay, that's great. Thank you. So maybe if I'm getting this, and the hand raised, the quick straw poll that Katie did when everyone was indicated that they were supportive of the roundabout. Do we want to make a motion that we are supportive of the idea of a roundabout at the intersection of University and Middle, and ask the staff to look into considering a pilot and presenting options, costing out, level of effort, how long the pilot would run, etc. And we would also encourage staff to explore opportunities, as Brian said, for outreach and education, public outreach and education.
That sounds good.
That's my motion. Commissioner Altman, second my motion. And thank you, Commissioner Seabrand. Kevin, do we want to vote on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and since we're on the topic of kind of intersection treatment, pretty clear what the commission is looking for in terms of at University and Middle. Since we're talking about intersection, is there a consensus on a preferred option for Middle and El Camino Real, which is kind of at this moment in time the dedicated intersection? Is it something the commission would like staff to explore further, knowing that there are some right-of-way acquisition or right-of-way constraints that we need to explore with the private entities, as well as sort of just kind of the design overall. But I think a clarity from the commission whether or not this is something that you want staff to further explore would be nice as well.
Can I ask a question before we do that, Kevin?
Yeah.
Because maybe I kind of missed this little window, but in the dedicated protected intersection, is this also the conversation where we would add in there about, like, I assume that when the Middle Plaza opens up, that Caltrans is going to adjust their light timing to reflect a whole new world. Is that true? Or?
Right. So Hugh can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the timing, so I think you're talking specifically about sort of that sharing feature between the ped and the bike on Middle. Is that the one that you're talking about?
Specifically, currently right now, you have like a half an hour to cross Middle if you're paralleling El Camino. That's like 3 light cycles of walk. So like they don't need any curb outs to help them have time to cross that street. Mm-hmm. However, the light coming across El Camino, like it's not even long enough, it's barely long enough to get the pedestrians, much less to actually clear out the traffic. Now that so many more pedestrians are leaving the job site at the end of the day, like that crosswalk gets a lot of traffic and it often isn't enough to clear all the cars. So I'm just saying, like, as that obviously gets a ton more pedestrian traffic, like, is this the part of the conversation where we would say that signal light timing needs to be looked at, and maybe the leading pedestrian thing to kind of give them some time to get into and out of the thing, so that by the time cars do get their green light, they actually can clear it out. Does that make sense?
Gotcha. Yeah. So I think in this case, we can definitely explore the leading pedestrian time that you're talking about for crossing El Camino as part of the Middle Plaza occupancy or the Middle Plaza project, but then, separately, kind of the whole more holistic conversation about, no right turn on red, kind of the conflict between ped and vehicle as you're crossing El Camino on Middle. Yeah. That's a further conversation later on. So am I summarizing that correctly? Okay.
Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
For me, that sounds right. I can't speak for everybody else, but that sounds about what I was trying to get at.
I don't know a lot about yet about motions and the topics they span, but just for the sake of simplicity, I think can we make that one a separate one, Kevin, from
Absolutely.
Roundabout?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just focus on Roundabout for 1 second. I made the motion around, we're supportive, but they can look into a pilot and present options and explore opportunities for outreach and education, public outreach and education. Does anyone second that motion? Commissioner Seaborn, thank you. Oh, yes, Commissioner Altman did. Sorry, Commissioner Altman, you did too. Okay, so we should vote on that quickly and then move to the, okay.
Great. Yeah, so commissioners that would like to vote yes to that motion, if you can raise your hand, hold it up, unanimous vote. Great, thank you.
And then let's, Commissioner Seaborn, do you want to, from the conversation you just had with Kevin, talk about or raise a motion for the El Camino intersection? Or Kevin, how did you phrase it? It was about phasing in looking at the pedestrian timing and the right turn.
Right. So essentially we have sort of I guess two phases, two timelines, if you will. So the first one is as part of the Middle Plaza occupancy, explore adding a pedestrian leading phase for Middle as you're crossing El Camino. So that's kind of more the near term, if you will. And then a far term would be the protected intersection, the no right turn on red on Middle El Camino, and then exploring resolving that pet and vehicle conflict as you're crossing El Camino on Middle.
Yes. So, I only have one comment though. Is it a good idea to make the discussion or implementation of no right turn on red to push that out? I have a feeling, it seemed to me that there was a bit of concern around that, and maybe I'm not understanding the rationale for pushing that off to a later phase.
Well, it would be a later phase. So it'll essentially be kind of the similar phase with the dedicated as well as the signal phase. Yeah, so all those three are going to be more long-term conversations. So they are going to be sort of the long-term phase, if you will.
Okay, well, Commissioner Seaborn, do you want to make a motion in support of that phased approach?
I can sure try. So let's see, I move that we look at whatever, I move that we do what Kevin just said.
I was going to say, why don't we just say we
whatever Kevin just said?
How about if we accept the recommendation or we support the recommendation of the phased approach made by the staff?
Yes.
All right.
Perfect. Thank you.
And I second that.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second. Commissioners that would like to vote yes, please raise your hands. Thank you. That's a unanimous vote.
Now, Commissioner Baruzzi was kind enough to point out we could not leave Lake Street aside. I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Baruzzi. Commissioner Baruzzi, do you want to try a motion, phrasing a motion for Blake Street?
So for Blake Street, certainly happy to accept a motion, but I think at the last meeting it was fairly clear to staff that the commission as a whole supports a child closure. So we started engaging with the Blake residents on that aspect. We're gonna start engaging with the Blake residents on that aspect already. So certainly welcome a motion, but I don't think it's necessary.
No, I don't think so. I think there was maybe one public comment about, I think that might have been Sandy, the public comment about
parking removal. There were people there, so there had been a comment in the staff report about maybe we could add bike, and I think there aren't sidewalks on Blake right now. Is that correct?
No, there are no sidewalks on Blake.
No sidewalks.
Yeah. Okay. So let's keep it simple for the pilot, and not pilot adding stuff, but just see what happens with the pilot. And it seems to be the desire of the residents of Blake just to pilot the closure without and improving the crossing to the park without adding anything. And I think let's see what happens.
Is there a question that we're answering about whether it's closed off from one side or both sides? I feel like there was a question in there as to whether there was going to be traffic access from both sides of Blake or just from one side. Is that a question for us, or is that just a thing you're going to solve later?
So I think generally that is something that will get resolved later. I think kind of the sequencing would be staff would be reaching out to the Blake residents. we'll talk about options and et cetera, et cetera. So I think the direction is clear here that there is support for that closure. So I think that's all that is necessary from our end.
Okay.
Yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Have we covered everything? Sorry.
Traffic calming. We had traffic calming and the four-way stop at San Mateo, which is
I think, okay. All right. Can we get that summary slide up? I think just to make sure we wrap up. We'll look at that more time. Thank you. Okay. There was definitely generalized support of this. Does anyone have anything they want to, Commissioner Brizzi, did you want to say anything? Okay. Okay. So is it important, Kevin, for us to indicate in any formalized way that we support these traffic calming measures?
Yeah, so maybe let's just go ahead and have a motion in a second to support the traffic calming measure suggested by city staff. And then
okay, that's my, so does anyone want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. Support the traffic calming measures as suggested by staff.
Great.
Second that.
Thank you.
Okay. So for commissioners, I would like to vote yes. If you can please raise your hand. I'm seeing unanimous votes. Great, thank you very much. And I think that concludes the item.
I think it does.
Awesome.
Thank you again to the staff. Lots of hard work went into that, we can see, and just a lot of great, I love the way the public comments and input have been incorporated, and thank you so much for listening to the public and to us as well, and to make this a collaborative process. I think it was really successful. So thanks again. Does anyone have anything else to add?
I just want to thank members of public who took the time. I think you kind of caught this, but who took the time to create. I mean, I think Ashley Callahan sent us a whole PDF a while ago, and there was, I know Susan Earhart sent us a thoughtful email, and there've been other outreach. And
sure.
Thank you for the feedback, and it's always thought-provoking and helps us understand.
Absolutely. All right then. So moving along. What I would suggest, Kevin, if you're okay with it, since it's getting late, and I think our effectiveness might drop off in the later hours, but is perhaps we could do E3. Maybe we don't talk about E4, about the commission subcommittees this time, because it might take a while. And then we just go E3 about the new meeting start time, informational items, and the update on major product status. That might take us to about 10, I think. Is that okay with you?
Absolutely, yes. And so in that case, I guess we'll officially close off E2 and open up E3 in this case. I do have just a quick slide that just demonstrates all of the commission and city council meeting time, just for your reference.
Oh, thank you.
As we have that discussion.
Thank you.
So here we go. So as you just brief remark, basically this is an opportunity for the commission to explore adjusting the start time of the meeting. As you can see from the slide in front of you, essentially besides the Complete Streets Commission and Planning Commission, which starts at 7 o'clock, all other commission, including the City Council, either starts at 6:30 or 6 o'clock. So an opportunity for the commission to see if there's any desire to adjust the time, most likely to an earlier time than currently. So I'll close my remark and open it up for any discussions or questions.
Any discussion on this? Let me see if I can, I don't see any hands raised. Okay.
If that's the case, maybe we can just quickly call out for public comment so we can get that.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Yes, that is not, sorry, apologies. Hold on a second. Okay, any clarifying questions from the commission before I take public comment? I think so. Okay, Patrick, do we have any public comment on this item?
It does not look like it at this time.
Okay, so I'd like to ask the commission for any feedback. In particular, I'd be interested to know if people want a 6:30 or a 6 or not moving at all. Commissioner Coleman.
Yeah, I don't mind the 6 p.m. If that can be an option.
Thank you. Commissioner Sebrian?
I would lean towards 6:30, but I'm probably fine with if we go to 6.
Okay. Commissioner Bruzy?
I'm super flexible on this topic, and I know that I'd be curious, in addition to hearing from fellow commissioners, if there are staff hardships associated with one time or another. And also wondering if we're going back to in-person meetings and if that will affect any of this.
Thank you, Commissioner Baruzzi. So from a staff perspective, certainly no objection from us moving the time forward to the part about once we return to in-person. So this would be kind of a permanent adjustment to our start time. So certainly, definitely, as you kind of consider that, you do want to consider the fact that if we do go back to in-person, the potential impact to residents that would like to return in person that are maybe working a kind of a standard job hours. With that being said, as you may or may not know, the city council's meetings have been conducted as a hybrid format, so allowing both in-person and Zoom meeting for the meeting. So I would suspect that we'll continue that practice for commissions in the future as well. So maybe that's not as big of a concern for us, but certainly want to definitely appreciate you raising that as a potential consideration.
I mean, maybe just for commissioners to factor in commutes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. If we were starting to go back in person. Good point. Thank you. Commissioner Jensen?
Yeah, just throw my 2 cents out there. I would lean toward the 6:30 time. I think going a little bit earlier would be nice, just because, yeah, I think our energy level definitely drains off by the end of the night because everyone's tired. And
yeah, it's like
call it a night, but yeah, 6:30 would be great.
Thank you, Commissioner Jensen. All right, well, like Katie, Commissioner Bruzy, I'm flexible, whether it's, I do like the idea of making it earlier than 7. And I'm flexible. I was probably leaning towards 6, but 6:30 is okay as well. Commissioner Bruzy, did I get that right? Do you have a preference between 6 or 6:30?
No, either way, my husband makes dinner that night. So.
Okay. Well, if I vote for 6, we're kind of tied. We have, I think Jackie and JK were 6:30, and then I think Christopher and I were 6. Oh, Brian, I'm sorry, Commissioner Altman, did you have a point of view on this or preference?
No preference. No preference. I half jokingly, I think it'd be interesting to have an ending time.
There you go.
It's the only meetings I've ever been in that doesn't, I mean, it's probably just the culture of city meetings and commission meetings. So I'm just joking, but it'd be interesting that just from an agile, forcing an agenda clarity to try to have an ending time.
Yeah.
That's a complete aside. So take it for what it's worth. It's just half jokingly. Okay.
Well, Commissioner Altman, it's something on my mind during the meeting for sure. Yeah, no, and I appreciate the comment because I do think that we're all volunteering our time and we also want to run really productive meetings. Commissioner Bruzy?
Yeah, I think that on that note, so City Council, as I understand it, has a rule that if they're going to go past 11, they vote on it. Is that accurate? Okay, so one thing we could think about is do we want to have, we can't control how many public commenters show up, and sometimes that's going to take longer, but we could have sort of a clause that says if we think we're going to go past 9 o'clock, like we get through the major agenda items and we think we're going to get past 9 o'clock, we vote to continue the non-essential items that come after the big things.
My comment is more just towards, maybe forcing things pre-meeting or just looking for ways of us just, maybe taking advantage of, doing things prior to the meeting and being, things being, on the hard discussions rather than just on the procedural stuff. I don't know. I just think having an end state, just from an agile development kind of point of view, always forces things to happen. And, you know, but it's not a big deal for sure.
Well, I mean, I think as a general rule, meetings over 3 hours long are kind of difficult to sustain one's, you know, real performance or just engagement and you know, acuity. So given that this is a start time of 7, I've just been looking at the clock in the past few meetings to end before 10. So we could say, building on what Commissioner Bruzi was suggesting, excuse me, if we start at 6:30, we could say at 9:30, we take a vote. You know, just as a general matter as to whether, you know, we should continue finishing the agenda if there's more left. That could just be, I don't know, Kevin, if that's something that can be an informal rule, formal agreement, or whether that gets into starts to trigger like we have to talk to the city clerk about this.
Right, so I believe that practice, which is currently a practice for the city council, I believe it did go through the formal process. So if it's amenable to the commission, I think generally from staff, at least from my perspective, whenever we communicate with the chair about the agenda item, we typically have one big item or two small items, generally speaking. So, you know, I think we just, if it's amenable to the commission, you know, we continue to you know, have that practice.
Yes.
I think there are definitely ways that we can shorten the time. So for example, you know, if it might be if the commission is okay with reviewing the minutes, first of all, and then if you have any additional feedbacks, share that with staff ahead of time, and we'll just say out loud during the meeting on record, right? Or with the commission or the subcommittee updates, you know, perhaps instead of going it line by line, we just say, if there's any updates, go ahead and share that. If not, we kind of close it off as a whole for that. So we continue to look for practices to kind of reduce the time.
That's the idea. Yeah, just
okay.
I have no problem with the amount of time. I just thinking maybe we could do more with the amount of time.
Okay, so I think we talked about that, Kevin. I completely agree that as a best practice, we should say, does any subcommittee have a update? So if everyone's all right with that, we'll proceed that way. And then, and I really like the idea of, if you have comments in the agenda minutes, submit them to staff. The only question I have around that is, should that be as a reply to all email? Because should everyone hear what, you know, suggested edits you'd like to make? It seems like everyone should have visibility to those rather than just like, you know, an email, me sending you an email with no one else CC'd saying, I'd like you to change this in the minutes.
Absolutely.
Right?
So that is something I would like to share, or at least solicit the feedback from the city clerk. It is sort of, you know, comments on the meeting that have taken place already. So theoretically, maybe there's no Brown Act violation to do a reply all and have a discussion about that. But do let me kind of consult the city clerk.
Sure.
To make sure.
Absolutely. All right. Well, do we want to say 6:30 then? I don't want to force the 6:30 people to go a little earlier, but it's easier for the earlier people to go a little later. So I'm going to make a motion that we will change the start time of our meetings to 6:30 p.m. from 7 p.m.
I'll second it.
Great,
Thank you.
So commissioners that would like to vote affirmative to this, if you can raise your hands. I believe that's unanimous votes. Great, thank you.
Okay, and after that, let's skip E4 and go to informational items F, which I will say, informational items are transmitted to the commission in staff's effort to provide an update on matters of importance to the commission. Informational items are not action items. However, sorry, my son. However, commission, city staff member, or a member of the public may request to make a comment or ask a question on any of the informational items.
Okay, so with F1, which is the update on major project status, I will just share 2 quick notes. First and foremost, the online survey for the Ringwood and Coleman transportation study is still available. So if you haven't had a chance to, or if you know someone that would like to provide their feedback, certainly welcome a sharing of the words from the commission. Second, from a regional standpoint, just wanted to point out that the high-speed rail project, the final EIR, has been released. So this is the segment between San Jose and San Francisco connection. For those interested, definitely you can happy to share the link with you if you are, and then take a read before bedtime. With that, I will conclude my update. Sorry, Chair, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, so does that include update on major project status? Sorry.
Yep, I just did that.
You did that both. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And then this is does any subcommittee have an update?
Do we need to call for public comment on the major project update? Sorry.
Doesn't say that on my notes.
Okay.
Any reports from any commission members on any of the subcommittees? Okay. If not, I'm going to move to adjourn the meeting at 10:01 p.m.
Great. If I may just have a quick announcement. I know August, we are in the summer month. So if any commissioners that will take vacation that might not be able to make it to the August meeting, I do plan on sending out a survey just to quickly make sure that we have a quorum for the August meeting. So just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. All right, everyone, good night. Thank you again for your time and thanks for a successful meeting. Appreciate your participation.
It was good to see you, everyone. Bye.
All right, bye. Thanks, everyone.